Hello, everybody. Oh, are we ready or are we not? Because my goodness me, it is a mixed grid. We've had sprint qualifying in Monza to try and mix up the grid. If you thought that was a mixed grid, you need to see this one. Let's have a little gander at it because here, there, and everywhere there are cars that you just would not expect. It is a little bit crazy. We've got Norris still starting from P1 today. What a mesmeric performance from him yesterday. Got it just perfect, in my opinion, and ended up being miles ahead of the rest of the grid. Zero point 0.4 of a second ahead of Carlos Sainz in second. But Carlos Sainz is starting on the other side of the grid, and the guys at Sky have been talking about how possibly it might be a little bit of an advantage to be starting from second place instead of first. You can get a bit more of a toe down into turn two. You can get ahead of the game a little bit, and you get a little bit more grip on that side of the track. So it could be a little bit beneficial for Sainz. We could see that turnaround. Hello, everybody. How are we doing? Hello, Sally. We're all here again, of course. We're ready for Russia about half an hour or so before the start of the race. We're now seeing cars coming towards the grid, starting to get set up in and amongst where they're going to be starting. But lovely to see you guys all here again. Let me get the chat up in front of me. And let's have a little gander. Already, like 15, 16 of you in here. God, you guys are prompt. You're better than me. I was running a little bit late because I've only just heard that Giovinazzi has dropped down to the back. But we'll see that and talk about that in a moment in time. First of all, we need to be talking about George Russell getting into third place in a Williams. Yes, it was changeable conditions, but if you haven't seen, there's a little bit of rain over the sea that is just behind the track here in Sochi. Could that rain head over towards the track over the next few hours or so? Possibly, you know what I mean? Like, it could really end up being a bit of a mixed race again. We had a mixed qualifying, bit of a mixed race possibly. And, you know, we've seen George Russell flourish in these mixed conditions. In Spa, we saw him take a podium position. Yes, of course, the race didn't really happen. In like the grand scheme of things, I don't think we'll look back at Spa with a positive outlook. But if you're George Russell, you definitely will look back at Spa. It's your first ever podium. You earned it in qualifying, got that second place, and he's done it again today. Put himself in the podium positions, got himself up there. Third place he's going to start today. And again, he's going to get that toe down into turn one. Mercedes power unit up against a Ferrari power unit. It wouldn't surprise me if we saw George Russell maybe get a little bit more of an advantage. I know I've just talked about Carlos Sainz getting the toe all the way down. George Russell's going to get a toe as well and has the Mercedes power unit. I think Carlos Sainz and George Russell and Lando Norris could all end up in a bit of a mix down into turn one, especially with that guy, Lewis Hamilton, in fourth place behind them, putting the pressure on those guys in front. If you're George Russell in a Williams, there is one person you really don't want to be beside you on the grid. It's probably Lewis Hamilton, because Lewis Hamilton's going to have the bit between his teeth. He's made a mistake yesterday. He's managed to qualify fairly well considering he made that mistake. A fourth place start for him, and he will be looking forwards rather than backwards. You know, Lewis Hamilton, this is his race to lose, in my opinion. He should have been on pole yesterday if it wasn't for that mistake going into the pit lane and hitting the wall. It cost him, it cost Valtteri Bottas as well. And they've got to sort of come back from where they are now. But it is still Lewis Hamilton's race to lose, especially looking back towards the back end of the grid. But fifth place for Daniel Ricciardo. It's a bit of a mixed one for Daniel Ricciardo. Could he be looking forward? Should he be looking backwards? I think personally, after the win last time out in Monza, he's got a little bit of momentum behind him. Why not be looking forward? You know, George Russell's in front of you. I think he'd definitely be looking at George Russell in a Williams as someone he can overtake. They've shown that that car is much, much faster than Williams over the course of the season, so he's got to have an eye on him. He's going to be looking at the Ferraris, you know, the battle for third place in the Constructors' Championship between the McLarens and Ferraris. He's going to have an eye on Carlos Sainz and be thinking, actually, I can maybe get the better of you. He's going to have a little look at Lewis Hamilton off of the start line. We saw his starts in Monza, like in sprint qualifying and in the race. Daniel Ricciardo was able to make up places off of the start line. If he's able to do that again, he's going to have an eye on Lewis Hamilton, an eye on George Russell. And then it's, you know, possibly looking at another McLaren 1-2 if Ricciardo is able to push that way forward. As I said, lots and lots of little things that are going to happen down into turn one, turn two. And it's going to be a little bit bedlam because behind them on the third row of the grid, we've got Alonso. Oh, sorry, no. On the third row of the grid, we've got Alonso beside Daniel Ricciardo. And Alonso's looking really good in this Alpine at this moment in time, isn't he? Like, he's just found some form, knows what he's doing. Goodness gracious me. Alonso picking up points again for an Alpine. Again, probably looking forward at this point, He's going to want to keep Stroll behind him. Perez is going to be a little bit difficult to keep behind him. But if you're Fernando Alonso, you're defensively sound. We saw that at Hungary. He's so incredibly good when it comes to defending. And, the Alpine car around here doesn't look too bad. He's got Ocon in and around him, a couple of places behind. So he's got that ability to maybe go for a different strategy and leave Ocon on a similar strategy to what they were maybe going for. Alpine have got a good position to be in. Both the cars in and amongst the points. And I think, they can consolidate that 5th place in the Constructors' Championship today with Alonso and Ocon both being in the points. Stroll absolutely loves a wet qualifying. He managed to qualify as 7th, well ahead of his teammate Vettel, who is now up into 10th place. But yeah, Stroll, I just don't know if I trust this Aston Martin. It just hasn't quite come together for them this season. Maybe, Sochi will be an opportunity for them to right some of those wrongs, but hasn't been a great start to the season, or a great vintage season for Aston Martin, apart from those 2 podium positions, but then one of them got taken away in Hungary, and Baku was very, very lucky. Seb Vettel more than deserved that 2nd place finish. But if you take away those 18 points from Aston Martin, it's starting to look a little bit tricky for them. And they've got a real battle on their hands if they are going to try and catch the Alpines over the next 8 races. Then we look behind Sergio Perez, a very disappointing qualifying from him. Again, couldn't seem to get hold of the car properly. And actually, we just had Raul just said, Perez needs to show something. Completely agree with you, mate. Perez, an exceptional driver, but maybe just not the quality needed to be right at the front of the field. Like, he's been at, he was at Force India for so long. Before that, he was at McLaren, obviously, and he didn't quite show enough to stay at McLaren, and then went to Force India and was an absolute tyrant there. Really, really good performances. Continually one of the best drivers on the grid. But moving up to Red Bull this season, and, maybe it's that 2nd seat at Red Bull syndrome. The fact that Max Verstappen does get a massive advantage for being that number 1 driver there. But it just doesn't seem to have come together for him in the right way. He's only got 1 win this season. You could argue that win was very, very lucky. Verstappen had to drop out. Hamilton had to drop out for him to gain that win. He hasn't been in and amongst the podiums too often either. And, they're starting to lose a little bit of momentum with Perez, I think. And today he needs to show something. I completely agree with you, Raul. It's Perez's day to show something from 8th place, especially because he's only got 1 Mercedes in front of him and his teammate is behind him. So Perez really needs to be having a focus here and pointing towards Lewis Hamilton as much as he possibly can. Then we look at Ocon and Vettel, the Alpine Aston Martin battle there. And, Sebastian Vettel was very, very disappointed not to get into Q3 yesterday. He was so close. It was very, very close margins getting out of Q2 yesterday, especially because of the fact we didn't have Verstappen in there, didn't have Leclerc in there. It was very, very tricky for Vettel. He does start 10th though. And again, Vettel needs to show something for me. It's been a few races now where I haven't seen vintage Vettel, you know what I mean? He's been lacking a little bit of pace. He's been lacking a little bit of tenacity for me. I think since Silverstone, well, Hungary was exceptionally good, but since Silverstone bar Hungary, I think, he's been struggling a little bit in that Aston Martin. Yes, he's probably got an eye on 2022, and I was having this debate earlier, talking about Aston Martin. I think, they are a team now looking to 2022, 2023 even, and the fact that they've got Vettel there, a bit like when Schumacher was at Mercedes, could take that kind of role in the team, but Vettel needs to show something for me this weekend. Starting in the top 10, needs to finish in the points. And the man who will be hoping that he won't be finishing in the points will be Pierre Gasly. Really disappointing for him yesterday as well. Unfortunate that he didn't get through into Q3. He was absolutely livid. I think it was one of the Williamses got in the way of his final lap when he was trying to set a really quick time. But Gasly only starting 11th and actually only just out qualifying his teammate in Tsunoda there, starts in 12th place. So the AlphaTauris, especially after last weekend, massive disappointment for them in Monza. Gasly was looking so incredibly quick in qualifying and then lost it in the sprint quali, just touched one of the McLarens, ruined his whole weekend. And, you know, we've said that quite a few times about Gasly this season. It just seems to be that one thing, even all the way back to Bahrain, had that little collision again with the McLaren and it just ruined his Bahrain race. And we've just seen that multiple times over this season. So I think Gasly just needs a clean race, just a clean and tidy rundown. And I think we could end up seeing Gasly as a possible driver of the day because he is absolutely sensational, in my opinion. Yuki Tsunoda needs to get some points. He's in a fairly good position to argue amongst those Alpines and Aston Martins, if he can do, but Tsunoda needs to be looking forward, especially with Raikkonen, Mick Schumacher, and Mazepin behind him. You know, where you'd maybe expect them to be at the back of the grid from the drivers who actually managed to qualify. I just realised I made a little mistake because Bottas is starting in 16th place because he's taking a power unit change. Lots of people saying whether or not this is tactical or not from Mercedes. I'd love to know your opinions on the Bottas drivetrain and power unit change, whether you think that is just to put him in and amongst where Verstappen is and possibly cause Verstappen a little bit of a headache, you know, so Verstappen can't just rattle through the cars and make his way up to the top 10 easily. He's going to have a Mercedes in the way there of Valtteri Bottas. Or whether or not you think this is maybe a long-term strategy. I think personally it might be a little bit of a long-term strategy for Mercedes. They're taking the power unit now so that when it comes to the real crunch times, you know, 4 races to go in this championship. I know 8 races is not too many, but when it comes to the real crunch at the end of the season, Valtteri Bottas can be in and amongst it, fight with those Red Bulls, and obviously they've got one eye on the Constructors' Championship as well as having massive push for Hamilton to win the Drivers' Championship, that 8th Drivers' Championship, and of course calculate and dominate with the Mercedes team once again. Then we've got Latifi starting in 18th place. This is the mistake that I've made. I thought Giovinazzi dropped 5 places fully because he has got a 5-place penalty. He's dropping out because he changed his gearbox. So Giovinazzi has a 5-place penalty, but it actually turns out, like, with all the rule changes and once you stack up the drivers properly, it's actually only a 2-place grid drop because Giovinazzi is going to be starting from 17th behind Valtteri Bottas. Latifi, Leclerc, and Verstappen are the guys that are going to be starting at the back of the grid. And we knew that from yesterday. Obviously, Verstappen didn't even bother with qualifying yesterday. Went out for 1 lap to just, I don't know, get a little bit of a sighter in, I guess. But didn't actually set any times yesterday. So Verstappen will be starting from the back. Leclerc went through to Q2, but then didn't set a time in Q2. Same with Latifi, I think, if I remember correctly. Got through into Q2, but then didn't bother setting a time because they knew that they were going to be dropping to the back of the grid anyway. So it's going to be very interesting, a very mixed grid. And I think the real talking points are, you know, Carlos Sainz starting so far up and Charles Leclerc starting so far back. How close can those two come together towards the end of the race? Is Sainz going to drop back or can Leclerc make up those places? I think it's going to be very tricky for Leclerc to make up any sort of ground. The Ferrari doesn't look amazing around here. Obviously, I'd expect Leclerc to get up towards the points, but any further than like 9th or 10th would be very impressive from Leclerc today, in my opinion. And then similarly with Verstappen, how high can he go with Valtteri Bottas in the way there? Bit of a bollard they've decided to put there as the Mercedes team. So Verstappen again, how high am I expecting him to get? I think if he can get top 5, that would be a very good drive considering how good the McLarens look. Mercedes obviously in front of him, Hamilton well ahead in terms of where he's positioned. Yeah, I think if Verstappen can get up into the top 5, we're looking at a very good race from him. And, you know, he needs to continue to pick up those points. As I said, I think this is Hamilton's race to lose. So if Hamilton is going to win this race, Verstappen still needs to pick up points where he can so that Hamilton doesn't get too far ahead in terms of the Drivers' Championship. But that's our grid today. A little rundown of my opinion. I'd love to know what you guys think. Who do you think is going to end up winning this race? Personally, I think it's going to be Lewis Hamilton still, even from 4th. You know, Toto Wolff talked about the fact, even though they're starting from 4th, it doesn't really matter to them. They can still win from that position as we see a ballerina on top of a piano, as you do in Russia. You know, these are the standard things that you see in a Formula One race, because that's just how it works. Verstappen looks confused, so does Lance Stroll, Alonso. I think the drivers, they're enjoying it. Kimi Räikkönen with the biggest sunglasses you've ever seen in your life. My goodness me. Lovely to have Kimi back on the grid after a couple of races out. And as much as Kubica did a great job, I do love seeing Kimi Räikkönen on the grid. It's just going to be so weird seeing a Formula One grid without him. And obviously, I know he took that couple of years off and came back, but he's just one of the stalwarts of Formula One, isn't he? He's been there, done it, done everything, won a world championship, and it's going to be a shame to not see him next year. But we are going to keep a Finn in the Alfa Romeo team. I'm saying Aston Martin because I'm just confused by this presentation. Lando Norris looks bored. looks very bored. So does Verstappen. Like, these guys must just be like, why on earth do we have to stand here and watch a ballerina spinning around on a piano? It's such an odd way to start your Sunday, especially when you've got to be in a Formula One car driving at hundreds of miles an hour in 12, 15 minutes time. It's a strange one, but beautiful. Beautiful stuff. Kimi doing what Kimi does best? Absolutely nothing. Yep. Kimi's just being Kimi. Just literally stood there, sunglasses on, couldn't understand what he was doing, why he was even there. But here we go. Let's get your predictions in then. I'm going to show you my predictions board from Thursday. Oh, I think I even did this on Wednesday. So I've gone, I go early with my predictions. I go before qualifying. You guys have got the fact that you've seen qualifying now and you can make some predictions off of the back of that. But I like to stick with where I was before. I went for Hamilton first, Bottas second, because I thought what would happen is Bottas would get pole, Hamilton would get second place, and then we'd have the two of them battling maybe a little bit. But towards the end of the race, if Bottas was still in the lead, they'd obviously just give a little shout on the team radio and push Hamilton up into first place. So I went for those two. I still think this is Hamilton's race to lose. I still think Hamilton can very much win it. But with Bottas taking the power unit, drop down to 16th, I think it would be very, very impressive if he manages to get onto the podium. Similar to Verstappen, if he can get into the top 5, we're looking at a very good race from Bottas. I've gone for Lando Norris third as well, and I'm very happy with it because he's starting on pole position, and possibly, is in and amongst the talking for winning this race. But I think if Lando Norris can get second place in this race, I know it's so annoying that he's not going to get his first win and another podium this season. But if he can get second place this race, I'd be very, very impressed with Lando Norris. But I went for him in third on Thursday. So, I was optimistic, but maybe a little bit under-optimistic. I've gone for best drive Gasly. I think he's got a lot to do now from 11th, 12th place with Yuki Tsunoda behind him. But I still believe in Gasly. I still think he's one of the best drivers out there. Yes, his qualifying has usually been better than his race pace. And usually, he puts himself in a very good position on Saturday and then has an easier ride of it on Sunday. He's going to have to really work for it today as Gasly. He's going to be in and amongst a very busy crowd going into turn 2. Just needs to keep it clean. Just needs to try and get through that first stint and then work up towards getting those points if he can. Alonso, I've gone for my wild card, and Leclerc, I've gone for my struggle. And, Leclerc taking that penalty, starting all the way from the back. It's going to be tough from Leclerc, and I thought Ferrari were going to struggle in general, to be honest. So it's going to be interesting to see. Here we go then. The predictions are coming in. I think Russell gets a clean start, fight with Sainz, and Norris staying ahead. Russell's versus Sainz versus Hamilton. Ooh, I don't know though, because you get a massive tow. You've got to remember the run down to turn 1, turn 2, is the real braking zone. Then is a very long run, and you get a huge tow, obviously, if you're behind another car. So, could be very, very close. Hamilton, Lando, Ricciardo, Sainz, Perez are my top 5. Wow. I'd love that. I'd absolutely love that. Both McLarens on the podium again. Sainz just missing out, maybe. And Perez, you've got high hopes for Perez, which I like. I think Perez definitely needs to step up today. And I like that you've gone for him getting into the top 5. Lewis and Mercedes are much better than what they've shown lately. And I really believe that they are purposely trying to keep F1 interesting and not lose fans. I don't know. They haven't done too much upgrades this season. I think Red Bull have been very dominant this year and have brought a lot more upgrades than Mercedes have. And I think this year, if you're looking on the whole, the Red Bull car has been by far and away the faster of the two. But yeah, I kind of see what you mean. I think Lewis and Mercedes will win this race if everything goes sort of cleanly. I'm going to call it Hamilton has set a bar and gets jumped by Daniel Ricciardo and Alonso. Wow. And then Hamilton will sweat bullets trying to get past Alonso. Well, we saw in Hungary, it takes him a very long time to get past Alonso. Alonso knows what he's doing when it comes to defending. So I like that. It would be very, very funny indeed if Alonso gets up in front of Hamilton. It causes a massive headache for Mercedes if he does, because Verstappen is going to be training his way through the field to get as close to that McLaren as that Mercedes as he possibly can. I want to say Hamilton, Sainz, Norris as your 1, 2, 3. Ooh, you think Sainz is going to be able to keep himself up there and get in front of Norris? I don't know. The Ferrari doesn't look great around here. And obviously they struggle a little bit with the straight line speed in comparison to the Mercedes powered cars, but I like your optimism. I'd definitely love to see Carlos Sainz on the podium. I think it'd be an impressive finish if he could. It would be impressive for George to stay in the top 5. I think it's impressive if George gets any sort of points today, to be honest with you. Any sort of points today from George Russell is still a phenomenal drive in a Williams. I know yesterday, qualifying P3, you want to be like, oh, of course, he can battle for a podium. But I don't think that's really the case. I think even, a 9th or 10th place finish for a Williams is still sensational stuff from George Russell. Hello, Snow. How we doing, mate? Is rain expected? Yes, I think so. There is a lot of rain in and around the circuit. There was a helicopter shot earlier where you could see the rain absolutely teeming down over the sea that's just behind sort of the Sochi racetrack. And you can see it absolutely barreling down and huge rain clouds. So, a few hours' time, whether that will edge towards the Sochi racetrack. They're literally just showing it now. Yeah, you can see the rain over the sea, absolutely beaming it down. Will it head towards the coast in time to maybe cause a little bit of a headache during the race? We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, the race a little bit earlier than it was supposed to be when we first sort of had this weekend planned out. So maybe the rain will still make it here, maybe not. Perez definitely needs a good race. I agree with that. Platilobium? Platilobium? God, I just can't read. Platilobium. Gonna go with that. Yeah, Perez definitely needs a good race after lots and lots of 50-50 performances from him this season. I doubt anything seems logical will happen after this crazy season. Yeah, I'm sort of making predictions and talking about the race as if there's not going to be some sort of massive incident or rain or just something crazy happen halfway through, which if you're looking at this season on a whole, we've maybe had 3 races which have been kind of boring. The rest have been absolute bedlam. So that could definitely go either way when it comes to this. Williams, since the summer break, has suddenly become a midfield car. They look phenomenal, don't they? Like Latifi even got through to Q2 yesterday. I'll put the quali board back up, actually. But yeah, Latifi even got through to Q2 yesterday, obviously dropping back after making some changes. But the Williams car it does look like maybe, and I think very, very maybe, they could start to catch Aston Martin in the Constructors' Championship. By no means do I think they're going to get ahead of Aston Martin in the Constructors' Championship, but I think they could narrow the gap, is what I'm trying to say. Would it be great to see George get points? Yes, most definitely indeed. That's what I'm saying. I think 9th or 10th place for George Russell is still absolutely phenomenal. Belgium 2021, let's not reminisce. It's still dry at the moment, so no Belgium 2021. Off topic, who did you prefer, Senna or Schumacher film? I haven't watched the Senna film in a very long time. I did really enjoy the Schumacher film. I talked about this before though, the fact that it was so short. I thought it could have been a lot longer, and I'd love to know more detail. But obviously, let's try and fit it down into 2 hours, so kind of makes sense. Norris, Hamilton, Ricciardo are my top 3 today. There we go, John. That's what I like to see. Norris at the top, Ricciardo third. Yes, please. Thank you very much. This season of F1 has spoiled us. Glimpse into what the future is going to look like. I mean, yeah, this season has been absolutely phenomenal. Like, I've been so lucky that I decided to start this channel during this season because it's been by far and away one of the best seasons of Formula One we've had in forever. The title fight continuing to flip flop, the battle for third continually going backwards and forwards, the McLaren cars, all these like young prodigies coming through. You know, George Russell's having a phenomenal season, Lando Norris having a phenomenal season, Leclerc's coming to the fore, Max Verstappen could win his first championship. It's so much going on the grid this season. And I really hope it continues over the next few because 2022, all those changes, I just hope all the changes are positive and push the sport forward. And, you know, we're not back to how we were a couple of years ago where it's just one team manages to absolutely nail it and wins everything and everything. Oh, my goodness me. Sonoda is going to do to Kvyat about it. No, no, no. Sonoda's a good driver. We love Sonoda. We don't we don't talk down on Sonoda yet. It's his rookie season. Give him some time. He's got next year in the bag. You know, AlphaTauri are going to hold on to him. Just let him be. Let him be. And Senna definitely. Oh, was it a question about? No, it was a question about the films, not like the drivers. So, which did you prefer, the Senna documentary or the Schumacher documentary? Mazepin win today. Love that optimism from Valtteri. It's James. Love that. Hopefully, Norris, Ricciardo, Sainz as your podium. What's happened to Hamilton there? I think the only way Hamilton doesn't finish first or second is if something goes terribly, terribly wrong. Like I think Hamilton, you know, is still my number one to win this race, as much as it pains me to say. I'll pop up the championship board just so we can have a little look. Although we're getting ever so close to starting this race, been chatting a lot about the grid. There's so much to talk about in the grid today because it's so all over the place. And then lovely to see you guys getting involved in the chat with your predictions. But let's have a little look at the Drivers' Championship as well because it is so close in so many positions. You know, Bottas dropping back now gives Norris a real opportunity to retake third place in the Drivers' Championship with 7 races to go, which is disgustingly obscene from Lando Norris. Doing an amazing job if he manages to finish up in third. As I said, Sainz and Leclerc, only 6.5 points between them. Leclerc starting from the back. Can Sainz retake that position on Leclerc in 6th place? Ricciardo's going to have an eye on those Ferraris in front of him. Can he start to make up those places? There's so much going on at this moment in time in the Drivers' Championship, still with 8 races to go. It's going to get very, very tasty as we get to like 3 races to go in this season. If it's still this tight, my goodness me, we're on for an absolutely electric end to the season. But we are now building up. The cars are on the grid, getting set up and ready to go. Obviously showing the 3 compounds of tyre. We could see some wet weather tyres today though, so it'll be interesting to see what people decide to start on because they've got complete reign over what tyres they choose. Because if you think about it, yesterday we had intermediate tyres in Q2, so everybody on the grid has their choice of dry weather tyres. Nobody has to start on the intermediates even though that was their fastest Q2 time. So, gonna be very, very good. Next week, do drivers switch teams? What do you mean? No? No, they don't. Hamilton to pull a Mazepin and do a spin? Maybe. Maybe. Could be close. My goodness me. Here we go then. We're about a minute off of the starting lights. Just having a look down the grid now. Any changes? Any last minute incidents? You know, last week we saw Gasly and Tsunoda just falling apart at this point. So just double checking that nobody is, you know, going to fall apart on the grid like we did last weekend. Doesn't look like it. I think everybody is set up, ready to go, or as mixed as it might be. Do you think Russell will overtake Yuki? Oh, that's also a little bit of a battle that I hadn't thought about. 3 points for Russell, and he overtakes Yuki Tsunoda. So he needs an 8th place finish or higher. That's a very good spot there, mate. Possibly, that would be really bad for Yuki Tsunoda, wouldn't it? Like, I know the Williams is like resurgent at this moment in time, and since the summer break has come back, but Yuki Tsunoda, even in a rookie season, you don't want to be falling behind any of those teams. The Williamses, the Alfa Romeos, the Hasses, especially after the season they've had at the beginning. Yeah, I think it's going to be a dry to wet race as well, mate. I think it's going to be dry to wet. Going to start off dry, most definitely, and then get ready to go. In the water, yeah, so there's a delay on YouTube, so you might have to like pause one and line up the other. There's a little bit of a delay on YouTube. It's a natural delay between the streams, because YouTube puts in an automatic like drop between the two. Here we go then. For me, they're just taking all the tyre warmers off, and we're getting ready to go out on the warm-up lap. So I'll let you know when we start our warm-up lap here. Most people going for mediums, Alonso going for a hard, Perez going for a hard compound tyre, and Gasly as well. So those three, the guys in and amongst it that have gone for the harder compound tyre. And here we go then. We are away on our warm-up lap for me. Lando Norris ahead. Sainz, Russell, Hamilton, Ricciardo all come around. And they're again showing the rain off in the distance. Could we see rain coming towards? Ooh, Lando Norris. Okay. So the rain is expected to come in at about 3 o'clock. About 3 o'clock there is rain happening. My goodness me. If you stream Twitch, there's no delay. Yeah, Twitch is a little bit better when it comes to the delay. But I've always done YouTube. Maybe next season I'll look to expand out. We could possibly go Twitch. Could possibly go. We'll see. We'll see. I've just gone for YouTube because it's the platform I've used most often, and the one I like. I prefer a little bit. I wouldn't say I prefer it. I just know more about it, I guess. Oh, and Verstappen. Wow. Verstappen, something wrong with his battery. And that's not great considering they've just changed the engine and all the power unit. Ugh. But Verstappen comes around in 20th place. Woo. Am I the only one who thinks VTB sponsor stands for Valtteri Bottas? I wish, but Valtteri Bottas dropping all the way back to 16th now. Could be a tough race for him if he's going to end up getting his first win for McLaren this season. Let's leave a like on the stream, by the way, whilst we're here. Let me just double check. 29 likes already in Sochi. Let's bump that up. Let's see if we can get that to like 30 before. So one of you needs to hit the like button. Why not go for it? As they come around the final couple of corners. Oh, Verstappen's battery is all good now. Woo. Okay. Good for you as Verstappen. We want to see Verstappen battling as Lando Norris comes around the final corner. Goes the very short run down to the finish line, but obviously the start line quite a bit further up. So let's see what we've got. Hello, Tom, mate. Christian Horner stands in the Red Bull garage, poised to send an email to the FIA. I know it was Toto Wolff that sent the email, wasn't it? Although, wouldn't put it past Christian Horner either, to be honest with you. As we see, we're on board with Lewis Hamilton then. Second row of the grid, as everybody is still just wandering back. And it's going to be Charles Leclerc and Verstappen coming round the final corner together. On the harder compound tyre is Verstappen, so going longer on this first stint. Let's go then. Oh, the tension is building. I'm very tense. Very tense. I think just because Lando Norris is starting on the front row of the grid, and I've got high expectations for him and the McLaren team today as we have Verstappen take his spot on the grid. We've got the green flag then. The lights are going to begin. Let's see how we get on at the start of this race. And we are away. Let's go. Lando Norris, come on. All the way down to turn one. Easy, easy. Oh my God, and George Russell is up behind. And Ricciardo's made up a place as well. Hamilton looks like he's dropped a couple of places. Oh my goodness me, it's absolute bedlam down into turn two. Let's see. Carlos Sainz takes the lead of this Grand Prix. Lando Norris second. George Russell manages to keep it in third. And I think Lewis Hamilton has dropped down a place. Going wheel to wheel with Daniel Ricciardo at this moment in time. Lando Norris with a poor start from his point of view. And Hamilton with an awful start as well. My goodness me, Carlos Sainz takes the lead of this race. Lando Norris, George Russell. And then who is it? It's Stroll in 4th place. And it looks like Alonso as well in 5th. Lewis Hamilton down in 6th. Daniel Ricciardo in 7th. And still going to wheel as Daniel Ricciardo manages to get up the inside. So now Lewis Hamilton is battling with Daniel Ricciardo. And Sergio Perez is just behind him. My goodness me, what a start we've got to the Sochi Grand Prix. I told you, it's all the way down into turn 2. It's a very long run up, and Carlos Sainz is able to make the most of it. Can Lando Norris now battle back to get into 1st place? It's Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris, George Russell in 3rd. Stroll has managed to bump his way up into 4th place. And Alonso, just loses a place actually to Daniel Ricciardo, makes up into 5th place. Alonso 6th. Hamilton all the way down in 7th. Perez still remains 8th. Ocon 9th. Raikkonen has managed to get himself up into the points in 10th. Vettel's dropped down to 11th. Leclerc all the way up to 12th already. A wonderful start from Charles Leclerc. And he's ahead of Mazepin in 13th. Gasly's dropped all the way back to 14th. Bottas in 15th. Latifi 16th. Verstappen's made his way up to 17th. Mick Schumacher 18th. Giovinazzi and Tsunoda, the man who seems to have just not get any luck at this moment in time, is down in 20th as we go into lap 2. Carlos Sainz, still the man in 1st place. Lando Norris looking at the back of him. And now it looks like there's going to be a little bit of a train. And here we are. Who was it in the chat that said Alonso is going to get in front of Hamilton? Because you've absolutely nailed it, by the way. And Hamilton is struggling to get past Alonso. He's going wheel to wheel, trying to go around the outside the long way round. Can he get up on the inside? He can. Will Alonso be able to get the switch back, though, with the traction down? Oh, my goodness me. He doesn't. Hamilton manages to keep the place and gets up into 6th again. Hamilton just making an absolute mockery of the starts to these Grand Prix and needs to make up the positions. 41 likes on the stream. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate that massively. And there is a yellow flag in Sector 1. Who's that? No one, by the looks of things, on the little track there. Carlos Sainz, though, has got himself out of DRS range of Lando Norris. George Russell doing it so well to keep himself into 3rd place as the green flag comes out. Stroll keeping himself in 4th. And now it's Ricciardo. Can Ricciardo put together a little bit of a battle with Stroll? Lewis Hamilton behind him, though, is going to put on the pressure. Alonso in 7th. Perez still 8th. Ocon and Raikkonen make up the top 10. Antonio, was it you? You've absolutely smashed it, mate. You're just clairvoyant. Somebody. Antonio, what are tomorrow's lottery numbers, if you don't mind? That would be wonderful. Mazepin all the way up into 13, Tom. You're spot on. My goodness me. Mazepin with a great start. Let me have a little look. Yeah, the Haas of Mazepin. Just, I don't know how he managed to get up into 13. It's not like an incredible start from him. And it looks like the two Haases come together. But, my goodness me. George Russell actually gets a hell of Carlos Sainz. But Carlos Sainz gets all of the toe down into turn 2. I told you, such a long run down into turn 2. All about that toe. And then Carlos Sainz makes it stick down into turn 2. Almost goes over the curbs. Locks up a little bit his front right tyre. But wonderful stuff. Lewis Hamilton, again, an absolutely dreadful start. Awful start from Hamilton. Ricciardo just launches his way past him. Gets in the slipstream of Carlos Sainz, but then has to go super deep. Has to break out of the way of Norris, then loses out to Stroll and Alonso and Ricciardo. Everybody manages to get past Hamilton because he just goes up the inside and gets stuck behind Lando Norris. Has to break out of it. But my goodness me. Russell isn't looking good. Well, I mean, he is in a Williams, bless him. I think it's going to end up being a bit of a train behind Russell, which is really good if you're a Carlos Sainz or Lando Norris fan, because it's going to give them a little bit of a gap to the rest of the field going into the first few pit stops. Oh my goodness. And Alonso does so well, by the way. Goes round and then has to rejoin the track, but rejoins the track just behind. Daniel Ricciardo goes down the inside of Lewis Hamilton. Makes it look very easy, actually. Wow. What a start. What an incredible start it is. Russell now, yeah, I can see what you mean. Dropping 4 seconds behind Norris. But this is good. Gives a little bit of a gap. Bit of a gap to the rest of the field. Allows Sainz and Norris to just disappear up off of the radar of everyone else. And it means that Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris could be picking up a podium today. Alonso has now dropped down into 8th place, though. Perez has been able to get in front of Alonso. So now the two Alpines, 8th and 9th. Leclerc still in 12th place, but what a start from Leclerc. Gasly, unfortunately, down into 13th. Good gracious me. Thank you, Jim Brown. Afternoon, mate. Appreciate you stopping by. Ooh. And my goodness me. Aston Martin, Ricciardo, Stroll, sorry, Aston Martin. The Aston Martin of Stroll, Ricciardo and Hamilton all packing themselves very closely together behind Russell. They're all going to be within DRS of each other. And the gap to Verstappen they're showing from Hamilton is 10 seconds already. So Verstappen is behind Valtteri Bottas. Look at this. The Mercedes wall, the Mercedes plan to get Bottas in front of Verstappen perfectly worked. Bottas is in 14th. Verstappen is in 15th. And he's going to have to do a really good job to get in front of Valtteri. Valtteri, we know, is very quick around Russia and is going to hold Verstappen up for as long as he possibly can. Wow. Stroll on the radio. The chance of rain is reducing. The chance of rain is reducing. So we could see a fully dry race. It's going to be close to whether it's going to rain or not. They're expecting 3 o'clock, so about an hour into the race or so. But obviously, if that gets pushed back by even just half an hour, then the rain will not come. Kimi in 10th. Yeah, looking very good, Kimi. Needs another point. Get himself a 3rd point of the season in an Alfa Romeo. Just extend that lead that he's got on Giovinazzi just that tiny little bit more. And Giovinazzi not looking great, down in 18th, to be fair. Currently battling with Latifi and Mazepin. So not amazing if you're Giovinazzi, considering how well it has been going over the last few races. Yuki Tsunoda, I'd quite like to know what happened to Yuki Tsunoda. Dropped all the way to the back of the grid. Is now in 19th place, but only the Haas of Mick Schumacher behind him. So it's not a vintage performance from Yuki Tsunoda. I assume that something went wrong for him down into turn 2. Let's have a look, though. Carlos Sainz still leading this race and elongating his lead of this race. Norris now 2 seconds behind. Russell 5 seconds behind that. So, my goodness me. Are we going to see a CarLando podium? I think we might do, to be fair. I think we might see a CarLando one too. And it's Carlos is looking like the one who's going to come out on top. Lando will not be happy about that, will he? Losing out to Carlos now that he's moved over to Ferrari. Not a good start for Alonso. It was a great start for Alonso to begin with. He managed to get himself up in front of Hamilton for a moment. But yeah, Alonso's then just dropped back a couple of places. So don't think the podium is on for Alonso, no. But goodness. Aren't Mercedes the most despicable team in the history of F1? I don't know, Andre. Tell me more. Tell me more. Wouldn't call them despicable. Like, they've definitely, dropped Bottas back to cause Verstappen a bit of a headache, and he's doing just that. Verstappen staring at the rear wing of Valtteri Bottas, the flying Finn, trying to just keep him behind for as long as possible, give Hamilton an opportunity to try and make up some positions, although Hamilton not looking great in 6th place. Falling off the back of Ricciardo just a little bit. Keeping within that DRS zone, but so is everybody behind George Russell, unfortunately, in that Williams, causing a little bit of a traffic jam. But nobody can get past Russell at this point. So that traffic jam doesn't look like it's going to be clearing itself anytime soon. Bottas and Verstappen then we're still on board with. Just 0.4 of a second between Verstappen and Bottas, but quite the train they've got as well. Sort of Alonso down to Verstappen. Wow, that is a hell of a train, actually, isn't it? Alonso, Ocon, Raikkonen, Vettel, Leclerc, Gasly, Bottas, Verstappen, all very, very close. Verstappen is looking for a little move. Going to go down the inside, and Verstappen does manage to make it count. Can Verstappen keep in front of Bottas? He can. That is a very, very important move for Verstappen to make at this point in the race. Needs to get in front of Bottas as quickly as possible. And now he needs to get in front of his little sister's car. The little sister Red Bull, the AlphaTauri of Gasly. Not his little sister's car. Hamilton were on board with as well. Looking at the back of Daniel Ricciardo. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to catch him, though. That Mercedes power unit, the same in both of those cars. And now Verstappen. Now, Verstappen needs to be in two minds here. He does need to attack Gasly, but Bottas, needs to also push himself. Ooh, it's a good move. It's a good move from Verstappen. Just watching it back, he goes around the outside. Valtteri Bottas gets a little bit caught out, I think, and doesn't really think that Verstappen's going to be coming up the inside. Makes it count. Gets himself well ahead of Bottas and just sticks it in front of him. Bottas has to yield the position. Goodness me. Hamilton and Verstappen, 8.3 the gap between them now. Although lots of cars in between them as well. Perez is the man behind Hamilton at this moment in time, but not really putting Hamilton under too much pressure is Perez. Hamilton's got his eyes peeled on Ricciardo in front of him, but it's going to be tough for those guys. A bit of a train again behind Russell. So there's sort of two trains we've got going on now. We've got Russell down to Perez, and then we've got Alonso down to Bottas. And all of those cars very stacked up, very congested, all within DRS of each other. So very tricky for any of those guys to make up any real positions going into the next few laps. I think it is going to come down to the pit stops. Ricciardo also being told that the rain is less and less likely to occur as we're now on lap 8 of our Grand Prix. Do I think Russell can hold third position? I think it's going to come down to the pit stops. The problem is Russell's pace doesn't look great, and I think lots of people could be able to make that undercut work if they pit before Russell. But then again, we've got the possibility of the rain coming, possibly less and less possibility of rain coming. So how Stroll and Ricciardo can't get past George Russell because they're all in the dirty air of each other. I think if it was just George Russell and Stroll, then they'd be absolutely fine. But the problem is Stroll has got to keep one eye on Ricciardo behind him as well, and Hamilton is there's a whole train there, so you can't gain any real advantage because you're in the dirty air of so many cars. It becomes a little bit of it's something that we've seen with these cars and this generation of cars, and the reason that the 2022 cars are so sought after and the reason we're so excited for 2022 is because we do end up sometimes with these trains. If a car does get in front, it's so difficult for these cars to hold on to the back of them. Like you can see Stroll in that Aston Martin. The Aston Martin by far and away the better of the two cars compared to the Williams, but very, very tricky for him to get past because he just cannot get through that dirty air. And then Antonio points out that Lando is gaining Carlos Sainz. He is indeed. He's now within a second or so. Can he get into the DRS range when it comes to the DRS zone, though? Not quite. Not quite. Here we go, then. Lando Norris we're on board with. 0.8 of a second behind Carlos Sainz. Can he get into the chicane? Lovely stuff from Lando. Ferrari's first win possible at the moment? Most definitely possible. It's going to be between Lando and Carlos Sainz. Already they've got a gap of about 7 or so seconds. Oh, as we see Antonio Giovinazzi and Nicholas Latifi coming together side by side. And Latifi just forces Giovinazzi out of the track, not having that place if Latifi is battling for 16th there. And some good racing between the two of them. Max Verstappen goes past and gets ahead of Pierre Gasly. Gasly doesn't really make it too tricky for him. Knows his place in the Red Bull hierarchy. And now we're looking at Verstappen looking at the back of Charles Leclerc, who's still behind Vettel in 12th place. Oh, hello. Lando Norris in the DRS. Oof. Lando Norris saying that Carlos Sainz is starting to hold him up quite a bit. And Sainz saying that he needs to start pushing. So Sainz maybe just trying to look after his tyres a little bit. Whereas Lando Norris is now going for it. And we've seen a little bit of DRS there. Lando Norris having a little look on lap 9 of this race. I think lap 10 could be the one where we see these two come together. unless Carlos Sainz is given the go-ahead to try and push that little bit more. Looking at the radar still, doesn't look like the rain is getting any closer at this moment in time, so possibly couldn't be any rain later on. Lando Norris with the DRS though, down towards... Oof, very nice indeed from Carlos Sainz, some good defending. But Lando Norris gaining every single lap, getting into a position now where he could start to make a bit of a problem for the Ferrari. Don't know why Alonso's using hard tyres. Just going for a different strategy. So everyone else will pit. We'll give Alonso a bit of free air. And he can go. Hamilton still stuck behind Ricciardo. And starting to suffer now because those tyres in that dirty air are going to really struggle indeed. Ooh. And now Charles Leclerc, Vettel and Verstappen all going through the corner all together. And Charles Leclerc gets out of the... Ooh. Charles Leclerc all out of shape, unfortunately. Possibly struggling on those tyres still behind the Aston Martin. But Verstappen able to make that opportunity count for him. Oof. Vettel and Leclerc go into the corner side by side. Vettel pushes Leclerc out a little bit. Leclerc loses it that tiny bit. And Verstappen just jumps at the opportunity to jump in front of the Ferrari and get himself up into 12th place already for Verstappen. So great drive from Verstappen so far. Yeah, so Vettel and Leclerc having a bit of a battle. Verstappen just sort of bides his time, realises that those two are going wheel to wheel, gets the undercut, does Vettel. Oh my goodness. Actually, I think Leclerc might have touched Verstappen there. He did, yeah, because Verstappen is asking about his front wing. Because, oh my goodness me, Lando Norris around turn 2 together then, and into turn 3 and 4. Let's see if Lando Norris is going to have a little look. Goes down into the braking zone of turn 2. Lando Norris right underneath the gearbox of Carlos Sainz. He's been given the go-ahead by McLaren, and we can see now the orange car with Lando Norris really turning up and turning it on. Let's see how we do. Mazepin 10 seconds behind Bottas. Yeah, that's expected, isn't it? You know, Mazepin, Latifi, Giovinazzi, Tsunoda, it's all over for them. Might as well call it a day if you're one of those 5 at the back there. But we're still watching Lando Norris pushing forwards. Carlos Sainz ever closer still. Just seeing Carlos Sainz closer and closer every single lap. Although he has dropped back a little bit now. Now that we're on board and I can see his point of view. And Verstappen has been given the front wing is fine message. The front wing of Verstappen is fine. So that's a little bit of good news for you Verstappen fans. Ready and raring to go when it comes to this weekend. Carlos Sainz able to eke out a bit more of a lead now. 1.5 seconds on Lando Norris. Still a good margin between them and the rest of the field. 5 seconds you have to go back to George Russell. You can just about see George Russell come out of the final corner as Sainz and Norris disappear around the first. So quite the gap between them. But we've still got Russell, Stroll, Ricciardo and Hamilton all in that same train. Maybe just trying to look after their tyres a little bit at this point in the race. Because Perez is just holding onto the back of Hamilton. And then that's where the sort of train ends and the next train begins. Because it's a 3-second gap to Alonso, who's on the harder compound tyre. And it is those Alpines that are holding up everybody else. From 8th place to 15th, really. Very close. All those 7 cars all following one another. All within DRS of one another. And trying to find a gap where they can. Either Carlos or Lando might get their first career victory at this moment. I think you're spot on. I think it's going to be one of those two. They look a lot quicker than George Russell in 3rd place. George Russell's doing a handy job of keeping everyone behind him stuck behind him. So, Lando Norris on the radio. Front left, completely gone now for Lando Norris. So, that was the push. He had an opportunity there. He had a couple of goes over a couple of laps. And now it looks like his tyres are completely shot to bits. So, Norris now. And it's going to get towards the point now where we might see the first of the people starting to pit. Oh, and Stroll is pitting, according to the chat. Let's have a look. I haven't seen that yet myself. Oh, yeah. Lando Norris's front left, very grainy, very done. Obviously had just a 2 laps. Yeah, and Stroll does come into the pits. The undercut is on. So they're obviously trying to get ahead of Russell by using this undercut. What they really would like to do is come out sort of comfortably behind Bottas. Yep. Yep, they've done it. Lance Stroll just comfortably behind Bottas. Got a little bit of free air because that train behind Alonso, but ahead of Mazepin. So Stroll, I think, could have gone the right direction here. I think it's pitting early, trying to go for that undercut, getting really good space on the track. Because Stroll has now got sort of 10 seconds or so to Bottas in front of him. Completely free air, can push on these new hard tyres. Let's see what we can do. Stroll is going to go for it. I think Hamilton could do a similar sort of thing, right? Hamilton needs to pit, comes out behind Stroll, and possibly those two can battle together. Verstappen saying that the last sector now causing him some trouble behind. And Lando Norris leads this race. What happened there between Carlos Sainz? Was he within the DRS? Possibly. But he's managed to get it going. Lando Norris now leads this race. Carlos Sainz drops down into second place. Can he get a little bit of a fight back? He's going to get... Oh my goodness. Lando Norris then. Let's see if he gets that opportunity to push. What can Lando Norris do now that he's in the clean air? We're on board with Lando Norris. Just gaining and gaining. He's in the toe. He's got the DRS. Goes up the inside. Makes it look easy. Wow. Carlos Sainz, what happened there, my friend? Lando Norris on the radio. With the got him. And let's see. Is that going to be George Russell pitting now? It is going to be George Russell in the pits. Is he going to come out in front of Stroll then? Is the question. Have Aston Martin been able to do that undercut or not quite? Stroll making his way down the main straight. Russell's going to come out of the pits. Is he going to be able to get in front? And Stroll has gained the place. George Russell has lost the place then to Lance Stroll. Hamilton and Ricciardo, 3rd and 4th now. But Lando does it. And now what can they do? Lando streaming away from Carlos Sainz. 2.5 seconds his lead already. Lando Norris clearly has just been given the go-ahead. Clearly has been given the, look, Lando, just absolutely go for this. This is a domination from Lando Norris over the past 2 laps. He's absolutely flying out there. Maybe that Ferrari's tyres are just gone now, and we'll see Sainz come in soon. I think we're going to see more and more people coming into the pits now as Max Verstappen gets past Sebastian Vettel. Makes it look pretty easy, actually. Very good indeed. Up the inside, similar to what he did on Valtteri Bottas there behind Sebastian Vettel. Carlos Sainz is in. Carlos Sainz is in. A late call to come in. Hard compound tyres. Let's see then. So he's going to try and cover off the Stroll. So again, he's going to want to come out, what, in front of Stroll, behind Bottas, but in a little bit of space. Ooh, it's not the cleanest pit stop. Rear on that, the rear left there, a little bit slow. But I think it'll probably be okay just because, you know, a Stroll sets the fastest lap of the race. Oh my goodness me, and Stroll is actually coming up. Here we go. Is Carlos Sainz going to be able to keep in front? Just. It's not that big a lead as I thought it was going to be from Carlos Sainz in front of Stroll. As Stroll sets the fastest lap of the race and is absolutely flying on those new tyres. Let's see then what Carlos Sainz can do. In a little bit of clean air. Needs to maybe try and get this undercut on Lando Norris. Although Lando Norris looks like he's just absolutely flying. The undercut is huge here, but he's going to need to do some exceptional laps as Carlos Sainz if he's going to make up on Lando Norris. So we're going to see Lando Norris come in soon or go longer on these tyres. Ricciardo and Hamilton still yet to have pit as well. If I was Hamilton, I'd have pitted early, I think. think Stroll has gone for the right opportunity here. You know, he's made up that position on Russell. Let's see. Oh. Lando Norris saying he's got good pace and wants to continue. Lando Norris got some vibrations, but is happy with these tyres. He's happy with these tyres. Oh, as we see Ocon and Raikkonen both coming into the pits too. As we're watching now, Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc go past Ocon and Raikkonen as they come in. Wow. Here we go. Charles Leclerc now having a little look at Max Verstappen. DRS and has been released, as being told to maybe give a little bit of a push now is Charles Leclerc, because he's getting closer and closer to Verstappen. Obviously lost that position a little bit annoyingly. Yeah, the clean air is massively helping Lando Norris, helping him keep those tyres a little bit fresher. But at the same time, the undercut here is very, very good. But if people are going to go for 2 stops, maybe Norris will only go for a 1-stop strategy. You know, Ricciardo and Hamilton again, they haven't stopped yet either. Also possibly going for a 1-stop. Keep themselves in and amongst the clean air. And now can Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc do anything to put themselves in and amongst the talking for the top spots? We've still got Stroll setting fastest lap after fastest lap. And Carlos Sainz with a little bit of a gap to Bottas. So Carlos Sainz needs to be putting in the laps now. Needs to really push for those laps too. My goodness me. Ricciardo and Hamilton were on board with them. Perez just behind them, and Alonso too. A couple of seconds behind Perez, and then a little bit of a gap to Verstappen, but Verstappen still hasn't pitted yet either. Leclerc hasn't pitted. Gasly has yet to have pitted too. I think all the way down to Bottas, we've not yet pitted. Wow, Verstappen is flying. Verstappen has clearly been told to just absolutely leather it over these past laps, because he's a second a lap quicker than Alonso and Perez. My goodness me, what a lap from Verstappen. He's turned up. Is Verstappen putting himself in and amongst contention for a podium position? I said at the beginning of the race, if Verstappen can even get top 5, I'll be very, very impressed with his drive. And he's absolutely going for it. Here we go then. Alonso will stay longer on the hard tyres? Yeah, most definitely. Alonso's going for a completely different strategy to basically everybody else out there. Verstappen's on the harder compound tyre as well. It's Lewis Hamilton and Ricciardo I'm a little bit concerned about. Ooh, as Lewis Hamilton gets a little bit of air. Around turn 4, I think that is. Mercedes are going to have a poor pit stop. Manev. Start jinxing it now. Start jinxing it already. My goodness me. As we're on lap 17 of this race, Lando Norris is still in front, and he's now 28 seconds ahead of Carlos Sainz. An average pit stop is around about 24. So Lando Norris doing just enough to keep himself safe, though Carlos Sainz is in a little bit of clean air himself as well on fresher tyres. So we'll see what Carlos Sainz can do over the next few laps. But Norris might be going for a 1-stop. Norris has got absolutely an entire track length to himself. You can't even see anybody else on the straight with Lando Norris. Wow, he's got a massive lead. Ricciardo being put under pressure though by Hamilton, edging ever closer still. Mercedes of Hamilton trying to get in front of Ricciardo as soon as he possibly can. I think if you're Ricciardo, you're probably fine with Lewis Hamilton getting in front of you. You might be able to do the undercut anyway. Lando Norris. The track improvement is masking the degradation. Lando Norris very happy in first place and cool, calm and collected as well. Not worried about pitting, not worried about his tyres. Just happy to be in first place. Little bit of clean air, putting in the lap times that he needs to, keeping that gap to Carlos Sainz. Very, very clean stuff from Lando Norris here. The kind of stuff you get from somebody who has been in and amongst the podiums before, knows what it takes to get a podium in Formula 1. And now looking to get his first win as well, as we're on board the rear wing of Daniel Ricciardo, looking at Lewis Hamilton, eking ever closer still, always within that DRS zone is Hamilton. And then Perez just behind as well. That's the thing, Hamilton can't go hell for leather against Danny Rick, just in case. You know, we've seen that Leclerc ended up losing that position when he went for the move on Vettel. Hamilton could end up losing a position if the Ricciardo move doesn't go his way. Perez keeping on the tail just there, and Alonso still in the picture as well, just about behind them. Fastest lap of the race, though, goes to Verstappen again. He's gaining and gaining on Alonso in 5th place. And you got to remember, Verstappen is on the harder compound tyre. So is Charles Leclerc. Those guys starting to scream through the field together. And the Red Bull and Ferrari helping each other out a little bit. Although Charles Leclerc's dropped off the back of Verstappen just a touch. When a few laps ago we were looking at Charles Leclerc battling with Verstappen. Vettel then even further behind that. Gasly and Bottas, those guys yet to have pitted. Carlos Sainz first in terms of the guys that have pitted already. Stroll in 12th place. Russell 13th. Those guys have all pitted though. And then we've got Giovinazzi actually in 14th. He's yet to have pitted though, so a little bit out of position as Ocon and Raikkonen are 15th, 16th. Mick Schumacher, Latifi, Tsunoda and Mazepin round out our field. But it's still Lando Norris pushing it absolutely to the limit. And some wonderful stuff from Lando Norris, still eking out more and more of a lead as Ricciardo has to defend from Hamilton. Norris is now 10 seconds ahead of 2nd place Ricciardo and is 28 seconds ahead of Carlos Sainz still. So not losing out to Carlos Sainz. And McLaren, you've got to give it to them. They've done so good today. Wonderful stuff from them. Lando Norris going for it as well. My goodness. Over 10 seconds now. Eking out more and more of a lead. Lando Norris could end up with a free pit stop here if he keeps going at this rate. Obviously, he's got a pit fairly soon, but you're doing a good job. Looking at Hamilton, he looks uncomfortable behind Daniel Ricciardo. He's not happy there, is he? Not happy there at all. Lewis Hamilton school acting. Karoon legend. Nice. Oh, Bottas. Bottas still looking at a top 5 finish. Okay, not from where I'm sitting, Valtteri, but gonna need to get in front of Gasly or in front of Vettel if you're gonna look at a top 5 finish. Because Leclerc and Verstappen, the guys you started with, are miles ahead now, Bottas. So gonna need to up the level a little bit, Valtteri, if you're gonna get that top 5 finish. Not sure what Mercedes are watching. Clearly not the race that I am. Wow, Norris again makes up nearly a second that lap. Now nearly 11 seconds ahead of Ricciardo. It's looking easy now, isn't it? Looking easy for Lando. Just looking at the radar again, whether that rain is going to come. It will come soon. We were expecting it around 3 o'clock Russia time, so 2 o'clock my time, about 20 minutes or so until the rain is expected to come down. So 15 laps, we could possibly see a little bit of rain if you're reading into the radars before the race happened. Although it doesn't look like it's heading too much this way in terms of the radar, but let's have to wait and see. Unfortunately, you can't predict the weather. Hamilton, get ready to undercut him. Here we go. Are they going to come in this lap then? Lewis Hamilton saying as they come round. Let's have a little look. Is Hamilton going to start to think about pitting? Where would Hamilton come out? 20 seconds. So he'd come out in and around Stroll, to be fair. In and around Stroll and Russell. So he might be able to get the jump on Russell and Ricciardo if he pits now. If he comes out between Stroll and Russell, we might be able to get a few laps in, which are pretty hefty. And then we'll have to wait and see what happens from there. Mick Schumacher comes into the pits, though. Oh, my goodness me. It's all going on. Lots and lots to talk about in and amongst these pit stops. Just waiting to see whether Hamilton's going to come in this lap or not. Because he is still stuck behind Ricciardo. Could argue Sergio Perez might do a similar sort of thing too, although Sergio Perez started on the harder compound tyre, so a little bit like Alonso going for a very different strategy to everybody else. Lewis Hamilton on the mediums, of course. Will have to switch to the hard. You have to use at least 2 compounds within the race, and if they're going to go for a one-stop strategy, let's see then. Hamilton coming up towards the pit lane entry, and not yet. Not yet. Let's see then. Hamilton still not coming in on these medium compound tyres. Perez still 4th on the harder compound tyres. Oh, Mallory, my entire internet. Oh, that's all right. Don't worry about it. We'll get you. We'll get you up to speed. Norris is in the lead. That's all you need to know. Norris is absolutely flying. He's still in the lead. Wonderful stuff from him. He's got a 12.2 second lead on Ricciardo, and still 28 second lead over Carlos Sainz, who is the driver trying to undercut him. Lewis Hamilton, we're expecting to come in fairly soon. Will it be this lap, though? Or was that maybe just to try and put off the McLaren of Ricciardo? Try and get Ricciardo to come into the pits first? The mind game's coming out with Lewis Hamilton now. Let's see what he can do. We've seen Hamilton on fresh tyres earlier on in the season absolutely come to life, though. So it wouldn't surprise me if we can see Hamilton come to life on a stint with some new tyres. The problem is there's so many mixed strategies. So many mixed strategies in terms of... Ooh! Hello. Lando being told to extend if he can. The gap to Vettel, 25.4. So, and Mercedes mechanics are out. You're going to assume that this is Lewis Hamilton then. They come out late. And McLaren come in. Oh, they might have sold Daniel Ricciardo down the river. Hamilton does not come in. Hamilton does not come in. But Daniel Ricciardo does. Wow. Maybe it's Bottas that's coming in for the tyres then, because the Mercedes guys are out. Oh, and it's a slow pit stop for Daniel Ricciardo. It's all over and done with. It's a horrible, horrible pit stop for Daniel Ricciardo. Awful, awful pit stop for Daniel Ricciardo. It's horrible stuff. Wow. It looks like Mercedes have maybe pulled a little bit of a bluff there. Ricciardo's going to come out behind Ocon. Ooh, that has not gone well for Daniel Ricciardo at all. Yeah, that's pretty much ruined Daniel Ricciardo's race, that. He's going to come out behind Ocon, behind Russell, quite a distance behind Russell, 6 seconds behind Russell as well. He's going to be stuck behind Ocon in the Alpine. God, not happy at all with that stop for Ricciardo. Hopefully they've got the bad stop out of their system, because Lando Norris needs a better one than that. What actually happened then? The front left. Dear, dear, dear. Oh my goodness me. Norris first, Hamilton second, Perez third, and Ricciardo drops all the way down to 14th behind Ocon. Perez, here we go. I want to see the positions, not the Drivers' Championship. Sen, I completely agree with you. I'm trying my best. I'm trying to get a sort of, what's it called? A collaboration with somebody who can do that. Because, believe it or not, it's very complicated. And you have to have some rights to various little things. So I was trying to get a little collaboration going before I can start to show you that. Because I want to do it properly and legally. Some people who stream the positions don't do it with the correct legalities. Not pointing fingers or saying names. Hopefully they get Lando stopped perfect. Please, please, please. Oh, it was the rear left wasn't coming off, was it? I haven't actually seen it back. Ooh. Max Verstappen can't turn the car. Struggling with either the tyres or the turning. I assume he's like pointing towards the tyres. I can't imagine that there's anything wrong with the actual steering mechanism in the Red Bull car, considering how fast he's been so far today. Lando Norris still looking comfortable. Lost the lead at the start, got the lead back, and now he's looking absolutely wonderful. Still on the medium compound tyres. 24 laps into this race. Easily a one-stop strategy then for Lando Norris. Yeah, unfortunately. Who's winning? Lando Norris. Is George doing good? George is doing good. He's down in 12th, but lots of cars in front of him have not pitted yet. So we're going to see, Niall, after the pit stops, where he might end up. Very much still in and amongst the points, though, as Daniel Ricciardo does manage to get in front of Ocon as well. I've just seen that. So Daniel Ricciardo up in front of Ocon. And it looks like Hamilton... Oh, Hamilton sets the fastest lap of the race. Now he's in some free air. Still yet to have pitted. Graining is clearing up Lando Norris. Will Lando Norris ever pit in this race? He's just going to go forever and ever. Just keeps going. But yeah, McLaren unfortunately got Ricciardo's pit stop wrong. Hopefully they don't do the same with Norris. Saying that, Ricciardo now, fastest man out there, sets the fastest lap of the race as he's trying to gain back the positions on George Russell. Let's see what he can do then. Carlos Sainz still down in 10th place, but gaining massively on Bottas and Gasly in front of him. Max Verstappen trying to find a gap, trying to eke out a little bit of a position somewhere if they can, so that they can come in for some tyres. But the problem is, if they come in now, 24 seconds puts them in a bit of a weird place on the track. They're going to be fighting in and amongst Ricciardo, possibly Ocon as well. Yeah, it's not looking great if Verstappen comes in now. So Red Bull clearly giving it a minute or two and just seeing what happens. But maybe a little bit of a risk from them too. If Lando goes on this way, he'll have a free stop. Not with Hamilton setting fastest laps, he won't. Is Hamilton now released into the clean air, and Hamilton is turning up and turning the screw on Lando Norris, gaining about a second in that last lap or so. What are the new pit stop rules? So they have to, there's basically safety rules that have been added to the pit stops, so that you can't leave without any of the tyres not being on properly or anything like that. Lots of safety procedures added to the pit stops, and effectively it doesn't make the pit stops that much slower, but a little bit slower, and sometimes makes them a little bit more tricky to do quickly. Not the worst result ever. No, it's a wonderful result. If Russell's still in and amongst the points after everybody's had their first pit stop, be very, very happy indeed if I was George Russell. Finishing in the points today for George Russell is a mesmeric performance. It's still a Williams. Yes, he started P3. It's still a Williams. Still a Williams. So, we're not expecting anything crazy from him. Oh, as my stream has just decided to have a little rest for 5 seconds there. Hamilton. Oh, he's going on a charge, but those tyres not looking great for Lewis Hamilton. A bit of graining, and also starting to go over the curbs a little bit too. So, bit of a 50-50 for Lewis Hamilton. Will he come in soon, or will he just keep it going? Hamilton is coming in then. Hamilton is coming in. I thought it'd be this lap or within the next couple. So Lewis Hamilton then, he's got a bit of a buffer to Daniel Ricciardo. Is he going to come out in and amongst Stroll, in and amongst Sainz? Let's have a little look. Sergio Perez also coming in. The Red Bull of... Here's Verstappen comes in at the same time. Vettel is also in the pits. Let's see what we can do. Hamilton still in the pits then. Where is he going to come out? Hamilton... Pit exit now, coming out just behind Stroll, possibly? No, Ricciardo has managed to get in front. And Carlos Sainz making a great move on Valtteri Bottas as well. Carlos Sainz has pitted, Bottas has not, and manages to get up in front of him as well. Have Alpha decided on Gio yet? No, they have not. It's looking closer and closer to being Zhao, though, for next season. Norris and Perez and Alonso are top 3 now. But Perez, Alonso, Leclerc, Gasly yet to have pitted. Carlos Sainz, the man who has pitted, in 6th place. A 30-second gap to Norris, though. Lando Norris, so cool, calm and collected, saying that he could probably do another 10 laps on these tyres at this pace. Wow, he's in so much control of this race. Halfway through now, 27 laps in, and Lando Norris looking cool, calm, collected, and comfortable at the front of this Grand Prix, as Carlos Sainz is now starting to make moves on Pierre Gasly as well. His teammate Charles Leclerc in front of Gasly. If Sainz can get in front of Gasly here, I think Charles Leclerc might not put up too much of a problem for him, although he is another 13 seconds down the road, so needs to get ahead of Gasly and start making a move on. Has Danny Rick pitted? Yes, and it was an awful pit stop, Cooper. Unfortunately, it's dropped Danny Rick down. Hamilton did come out in front of Danny Rick, though. Did come out in front of Danny Rick, just. And Verstappen has just come out in behind Russell. So Verstappen come out behind Russell in front of Ocon in 12th place. So not great for Verstappen, to be honest with you. And now needs to get past Russell as quickly as possible. As I say that, goes down the inside and makes it work. Verstappen does get in front of Russell and is now looking at Ricciardo, the next man along, about 3 seconds up the road. Missed the last race because it was 3 a.m. That is fair enough. That is fair enough. Well, you've missed a Daniel Ricciardo win, but you're about to see a Lando Norris one if things are going this way, because Lando Norris looks so comfortable in 1st place. You've got Norris, Perez, Alonso, our top 3, Leclerc, Gasly, Sainz, Bottas, Stroll, Hamilton, and Ricciardo, the last man in the points. But we've still got Perez, Alonso, Leclerc, Gasly, Bottas yet to have pitted in and amongst there. So lots are going to change over the next few laps or so. As we see now, Lando Norris possibly coming in. The McLaren guys are out. Yes, indeed, it is Lando Norris from the front of the Grand Prix. He's going to want to come out behind Charles Leclerc if he can, and in front of Pierre Gasly. So let's see what they can do. Get it to work. Lovely stop. Absolutely lovely stop for Lando Norris. Shame it wasn't for Daniel Ricciardo, but, you know, they've got it right where it really matters with Lando Norris at the front. Leclerc gets in front of him. And now Lando Norris just needs to go. He's going to be miles ahead of Pierre Gasly and Carlos Sainz. Norris has done a sensational job here. Gets out in 4th place. Lovely bit of air for him too. Bottas coming into the pits then. Bottas apparently fighting for a top 5 finish. Going to come out behind Russell. Possibly even behind Ocon, right? Yeah, behind Ocon. You can see Perez going super long on these hards and then switching to softs. Ooh, man, that'll be good. That would just add a little bit of spice to the end of this race, wouldn't it? Going super long on these hard compound tyres. To be fair, he's still going on them. Alonso might be doing the same thing. So could Leclerc at this point. They're still all on the hard compound tyres and yet to have stopped. Gasly the same. Let's see then. Max Verstappen behind Daniel Ricciardo. Can he get any closer? Carlos Sainz now behind Gasly still. Can he take him over? Can he take him over? Because he's a mile behind Lando Norris. 7 seconds behind Lando Norris at this point in time is Carlos Sainz. So if he's going to keep that 2nd place and maybe start to get back towards Norris for 1st, he's going to need to do it now, because Norris is looking exceptionally good and very, very quick. Still watching though. Can Carlos Sainz do it? Not quite this lap. Lewis Hamilton barreling down on the Ferrari too. Carlos Sainz on the radio. Trying to give it a go with Gasly, but struggling a little bit. Being told to push though. Being told to push by the Ferrari team. Can Carlos Sainz make this work? Come on, Carlos. As much as I love Pierre, I'd love to see Carlos Sainz on the podium, and he needs to push through because Hamilton is just behind him. Hamilton has pitted. Goodness me. And Hamilton is now bearing down on Carlos Sainz. It looks like Carlos Sainz, instead of getting in front of Gasly, is going to end up behind Lewis Hamilton at this rate. Needs to make it count, make it stick. Down that main straight, they've both got DRS. Hamilton's on the fresher tyres, though. has a little look at Carlos Sainz and makes it. Hamilton does manage to get in front of Carlos Sainz. Hamilton makes the move. Carlos Sainz drops down into 7th place. And now Lewis Hamilton looking at the back of Gasly. Oh, Toto on the radio giving Lewis the go-ahead, saying, Lewis, you can win this race. Verstappen struggling behind Ricciardo as well. This will be music to Lewis Hamilton's ears. He's got Pierre Gasly in front of him, but Pierre Gasly's tyres 30 or so laps older behind Lewis Hamilton there. Can he get down? Lewis Hamilton's going to be in the slipstream and he's going to have DRS too. It's going to be very interesting indeed. Hamilton, what are we looking at then? About 8 seconds behind Lando Norris, but with 23 laps to go. Hamilton just needs to put in some very good laps. Needs to make up about half a second a lap, really, to be in and amongst it with Lando Norris towards the end of this race. And not kill off those harder compound tyres, because Norris can take it easy. Lewis Hamilton going around the inside does manage to get in front of Gasly. So now this is where Hamilton needs to push. Hamilton is now on the button of winning this race if he can catch Lando Norris. He will have to take Lando Norris on track though. No more pit stops, no more tracks, no more possibilities of undercuts. Needs to overtake him on the track. And I'm nervous now because I want Lando Norris to win this race. The legs are shaking. Oh, as we get 22 laps, good. I'm glad. I'm going to have a heart attack, for goodness sake. As Hamilton sets fastest lap of the race whilst behind Pierre Gasly. My goodness me. Here we go then. Hamilton is hammering down on Norris. Let's see. Norris and Hamilton then, both on fresh tyres, both in clean air. Let's see what their lap times are like at the end of this one, because that will give us a real idea of what's going to happen here, as we're now on board with Verstappen looking at the back of Ricciardo, trying to get past the other McLaren, who's in and amongst that battle with Stroll as well. So Verstappen in a little bit of a train here behind Carlos Sainz and Pierre Gasly as well there. Then Stroll and Ricciardo, Verstappen. And they've got a little bit of a gap to Russell, who is in 11th place. But again, Perez, Alonso, Leclerc, our top 3 at this moment in time, still yet to have pitted. Danny. Yeah, Danny, unfortunately, it was a terrible, terrible pit stop. But Lando Norris, a very good pit stop indeed. So, go 1 of 2, not too bad. Sainz still trying to have a look at Pierre Gasly. Oh my goodness. Oh, but Ricciardo has managed to get past Stroll. So Ricciardo has managed to get past Stroll. Can Verstappen gain on Stroll while he's battling with Ricciardo? He's trying to do a similar sort of thing to what he did with Vettel and Leclerc earlier on in the race, but can't quite. Is still behind the Aston Martin as Hamilton sets fastest lap of the race. I'd love to see a little comparison of Hamilton's lap to Norris's lap. Let me have a look what the gap is between them. Still, now it's down to 7 seconds between Hamilton and Norris. So Hamilton really making up some time there as Verstappen gets the move done on Stroll as well while we're on board with them. Lance Stroll really struggling on these harder compound tyres, unfortunately, in that Aston Martin, and starting to drop back a few places. Although, you know, the Aston Martin nowhere near the level of the McLaren and Red Bull this season. So, kind of to be expected. Carlos Sainz, though, still stuck behind Pierre Gasly and causing a little bit of a train for Daniel Ricciardo. Can Daniel Ricciardo have a little look at the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz now? Looking like Carlos Sainz is getting ever further away from this podium finish, unfortunately. Hamilton's been able to get in front of him. In terms of track position, it's Norris, Hamilton, Sainz, Ricciardo, Verstappen, because those guys have all pitted our top 5 at this moment. But Perez, Alonso, Leclerc, depends where they come out and whether they can gain too much time. As you said, Perez might be going super long and go for soft tyres at the end of the race, which will give him such an advantage on the rest of the field. 20 laps to go then, and Hamilton now only, 6.8 seconds behind Lando Norris. Hasn't gained too much on that last lap. Possibly Norris now getting into the slipstream of Charles Leclerc, giving him a little bit of a hand down some of these straights. But my goodness me, Minerva, I want Lando to win so bad too, man. I want Lando to win so bad. Here we go, a forecast. Apparently, Hamilton will be within striking distance of Lando Norris in 5 laps. That is not good reading for us McLaren fans, is it? That is not good reading at all, considering how easy Hamilton made it look on Gasly and Sainz. That is not good reading at all. And the overtake difficulty supposedly very, very low as well. Ouch. Lando Norris needs to start putting in those laps now. Come on. Let's see. Goodness gracious me. The problem is Verstappen is on those medium compounds as well. So you'd imagine he's going to have a bit more pace once this train behind Gasly stops. Schumacher on the radio. Mick Schumacher out of this race, unfortunately. Box to retire the car for Mick Schumacher. That is a shame. As much as the Hasses aren't really in and amongst it at any point, it is nice to see them, still make the end of the race, especially Mick Schumacher, get that experience in the car. But we're back on board now. Gasly still able to keep Carlos Sainz at bay. Incredible defensive performance from Gasly, and a hell of a train that he's caused behind him too. But Gasly really putting in the effort. I told you Gasly was going to have a good race today. I know it wasn't a great start from him, but he's made up for it. And he is now finally pitting and releases the rest of them. Valtteri Bottas being told to get those guys in front of you. Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris. And Norris managed to make it stick. Norris does manage to get in front of the Ferrari there and gain a position. Obviously, Leclerc yet to have stopped, but it's still very important as Gasly is going to come out of the pits behind Bottas. Oh, it's behind Gio, actually. Gasly really not. A great defensive performance from Gasly, but a stop and then behind the pits. Now he's behind Giovinazzi. It's all gone a little bit pear-shaped, doesn't it? Wow, Hamilton a second and a tenth faster last lap, although Norris did have to contend with getting past Leclerc. So now we're seeing Mick Schumacher in the garage. Unfortunate for him today. It's a shame to see him there, but goes around, has a little chat to all of the engineers. Yeah, there was a massive train behind Gasly. There's still quite a bit of a train. It's still Carlos Sainz, Ricciardo, Verstappen, Stroll, all sort of battling in and amongst a couple of seconds of each other. But Verstappen needs to get through them if he can. Although, looks like Carlos Sainz has been released and has found a few little seconds here. Elongated a tiny bit of a gap to Ricciardo behind him. Just needs to get out of DRS range if he can. Although the McLaren, Mercedes-powered McLaren, is going to be trying its absolute best to gain on that Ferrari, especially when it comes to the Drivers' Championship and Constructors' Championship, because Danny Rick is going to be thinking, actually, I'm looking at catching Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc, and keeping in front of Ferrari, so he's going to be doing his absolute best. A second or so behind Carlos Sainz now. Needs to gain if he can. Still looking at Hamilton gaining every single lap. My goodness me. Haas's financial situation must be very poor. I mean, it is pretty abysmal, unfortunately. They are just doing everything possible to get as much money through the door to just keep themselves afloat at this point in time. Then try and put every single thing into next season. My goodness. Lap 35 of this race then. Perez and Alonso still yet to stop at the front. Leclerc also yet to stop, but has now dropped down to 4th place. And we'll have Hamilton all over the back of him very, very soon. You've got to stop soon if you're Perez or Alonso, right? My goodness me, how long are they going to go on these harder compound tyres? The window is now open for those guys doing a 2-stop strategy. 2-stop strategy window is now open. Ooh. My goodness. Actually, Sergio Perez is going to come out in front of Carlos Sainz, if he does. Although Charles Leclerc is now coming into the pits for some mediums, and we'll go to the end of the race on these tyres then. Let's see where Charles Leclerc comes out. He's pitted, released Hamilton behind Norris then. So Norris had to get past Leclerc on track. Hamilton, though, does not need to and is now in 4th place with 4 seconds the gap. Bit of a slow stop for Leclerc. 4.8 seconds. Bit slow there, unfortunately. Not great. A lot of slow pit stops today. Lots of slow pit stops today. Come on, Danny, get past Sainz. I don't know if either of them are looking at a podium at this point in time. Because we're looking now, and Perez is looking like he'll come out behind Hamilton. If he stops now, 24 seconds. He'll come out behind Hamilton, and then it's looking like Norris, Hamilton, Perez is our top 3 on track right now. It'll just be whether or not Perez stops soon. Like, Perez has got to stop at some point, and he's already got a comfortable lead over Carlos Sainz in 5th. If I was Red Bull, I'd be doing it now. But Hamilton saying he's got pretty good pace, asking the Mercedes garage. There's very good pace from Lewis Hamilton. Starting to push now. Can he get towards Norris? Gains another 6/10 that last lap. Did I miss something? Schumacher retired. Yes, he has indeed retired. Mick Schumacher's out. Just a car fault. Came into the pits, retired the car. Yeah, I don't know too much about it, actually. I wasn't paying too much attention. There was a lot going on. Leclerc does come out in front of Bottas. So that's pretty good for Leclerc. If he's going to be trying to get in and amongst the points finishes. Got to get past Vettel. Got to get past Raikkonen. Got to get past Ocon too. But definitely feasible. Oh, and Perez, a terrible stop. Terrible stop. But Carlos Sainz is now past Sergio Perez. So is Ricciardo as well. Perez with an awful stop. Awful stop from Perez. Perez should have come out in 3rd place there. But Red Bull mess it up, get it wrong, and Perez comes out in 5th. Ugh. Goodness gracious. I challenge anyone to remember a better season than this one. It's been an absolute vintage season, to be fair. Wonderful stuff. Perez, wow, what happened in this pit stop then? So Perez comes in. Rear right tyre. Just stuck. Can't get the tyre off. Tyre goes on fairly easily, but yeah, they couldn't get that rear right off, and an 8.9 second stop for Perez really does cause him some issues now, because he's going to come out in front of Verstappen. What do Red Bull do? Perez is going to be so much quicker, but Verstappen needs the points. Wow. Norris does not want to know the results, is interested in purely one thing, keeping that silver Mercedes behind him. Does not want to know. On the radio there, Lando Norris, fully focused in, honed in, as we hit 53 likes on the stream as well. Thank you guys so much. We are 15 laps from the end of this race, and thank you all so much for taking part, watching with us. It's been a vintage Sochi Grand Prix. One of the most boring races on the calendar, not this year. And we're looking at Lando Norris. Hamilton in 2nd place. Now just 2 seconds between the two of them. Perez will let Verstappen pass, but Perez is so much quicker on the fresh tyres. So much quicker. Alonso comes in and comes out in front of Verstappen. Wow. Alonso gets in front of Verstappen. So Alonso clearly on super fresh tyres too. Alonso went very, very long on his stint, same as Perez. So now it's whether Perez can battle with Ricciardo and Sainz. He's not too far off of them. Should have been ahead of them. It's an absolutely dogged stop from Red Bull. But let's have a look then. Alonso looking at the back of Verstappen. And Alonso, just on those fresh tyres, gets past Verstappen, makes it look easy, actually. Goodness gracious. Yeah, pit crews have really decided this race today. Ricciardo got screwed over. Sainz, you could argue, a slow pit stop. Leclerc, a slow pit stop. Quite a few of them down the grid today. Perez, a slow pit stop. Bottas. Hamilton, another fastest lap. Now 1.7 behind Lando Norris on lap 39 of the Grand Prix. This is a formality. No, Governed. No. Have belief. Lando Norris. Lando Norris has been saving his tyres. Just been saving his tyres. Let's have a look then. Lando Norris in first place. Hamilton second. Carlos Sainz in third place. Ricciardo, Perez make up our top five. Alonso in sixth place. Verstappen in seventh. A good drive from Verstappen to get up to seventh. Forgot to remember he did start last. Stroll in eighth place. George Russell still in and amongst the points. A ninth place finish for Russell would be very handy indeed if you're a Williams fan. Ocon in 10th place, the last man in the points. Although Raikkonen is just outside and will be looking at the back of that Alpine if he can. Charles Leclerc also just outside of the points. Just overtook Vettel actually and gets up into 12th place. And Leclerc is going to be on super fresh tyres compared to everybody else. Went very, very long on his stint, did Charles Leclerc. Vettel in 13th. Bottas having an absolutely dogged race in 14th. It's been terrible from Bottas today. Really haven't been impressed with him whatsoever. Gasly in 15th. Gasly did some great defending, but it was never really going to be his race either after the start that he had. Ooh. Charles Leclerc being told there might be just light drops of rain at the end of the race, but I'm not so sure. The rain should have come in the last sort of 15 minutes or so, and it doesn't look like it's on its way anytime soon. Charles Leclerc, though, in 12th place, and will be thinking about getting points because Lando Norris is looking to win this race, as Lando Norris sets the fastest lap of this race. I told you, it's not over yet. It is not over yet. Here we go. Lap 40 begins. Goodness me. I'm about to have a little look at my internet right now. Oh, Mallory, I feel for you. It's definitely worth a watch. Watch it back later if you've missed it. Maybe even just call it off. Oh no, you've got your you've got the thing. Oh, dogged is good where you are. Having a dog of a race in like the UK is a bad race. But yeah, dogged is determined, but dog-ish is is bad. We'll change something else. How much he has to want Lando to win. Whew. Nah, Lewis won't win. Lewis won't win. Stop talking. Absolute nonsense, Nathaniel. Nonsense, nonsense, nonsense. Norris is in and amongst it. Norris just set the fastest lap of the race. 1.8 seconds ahead of Hamilton. It's a lovely little gap to have. Not even within DRS. Easy. Carlos Sainz, though, in third place. A big gap, actually, between second and third. 24 seconds, the gap between Hamilton and Carlos Sainz. So, Lando Norris absolutely miles out in front with Lewis Hamilton. Ricciardo and Perez now. Perez on super fresh medium compound tyres is looking at the back of Daniel Ricciardo. Daniel Ricciardo weaving around, trying not to give Perez a slipstream down into turn 2, although Perez is going to have the DRS as well. Can he have a little look at this lap? Doesn't quite gain enough. Oh, has a little look. Has a little look, but not enough for me. I wouldn't say it was anywhere near close enough to get that move. But will he be on the outside into turn 3? Still having a look at the back of there. Down into turn 4. Doesn't quite get it done either. But Perez, it's definitely coming. Definitely coming when it comes to this Perez-Ricciardo battle. They're going to be in and amongst it and alongside one another within the next few laps or so. Perez having a look for a couple of corners, but not quite being close enough. Alonso dropping off the back of Perez, though. Now 4 seconds the gap. And Verstappen in 7th place. Although Verstappen's tyres, you'd imagine, are starting to drop off in comparison to the guys in front of him. I think 7th is pretty much where we're going to see Verstappen end this race, unfortunately for him. It's a good drive. But 7th place, not too bad a point. Still picking up a few, and those few will count when it comes to the Drivers' Championship later on down the line. Sergio Perez, again looking at the back of Ricciardo, not quite. Hamilton and Norris we're on board with now. Hamilton still Still actually just, 1.5, 1.6 seconds behind. Not gaining too much every lap. Norris and Hamilton sort of trading positions in terms of fastest laps and lap times over the past few laps or so. So it's looking okay if you're a Lando Norris fan. As Charles Leclerc now in 10th place. Managed to get past Ocon. Missed that whenever that was. But Charles Leclerc on super fresh medium compound tyres. Now looking at George Russell. George Russell in 9th place, remember. It will still be a point for George Russell if he does get overtaken by Leclerc, which is coming within the next few corners or so, you'd imagine. Charles Leclerc having another look at George Russell down into turn 4. Will he leave the room? Does indeed. Gets it easily done. And Charles Leclerc takes 9th place. George Russell keeps going then. Come on, George. Keep that 10th place finish. And Leclerc, we're now looking at whether or not Leclerc can use these next few laps to gain on the likes of Stroll or even Verstappen in that Ferrari. Hamilton being told there's still a little threat of rain. Threatening rain at the end of this Grand Prix. Danny will shut the door. Hopefully. He's got Perez all over the back of him. And Perez's tyres are very, very clean in comparison to Daniel Ricciardo's. But we'll have to wait and see. Sergio Perez here should have been in 3rd place if it wasn't for that absolutely awful stop. So let's see. Lando Norris still in 1st place. A 1.2 second gap to Hamilton now, though. Hamilton edging closer and closer to DRS range. Oh my goodness. 10 laps to go. And there might be a little sprinkling of rain. It is looking darker and darker in Sochi. And more drivers on the radio being told to just, keep in mind that there could be a little bit of rain towards the end. So, here we go then. Lando Norris. Still a second ahead of Hamilton. Still just outside of DRS range. Enjoying the stream, considering you can't watch it live. That is a shame, do hey, but thank you so much. Do hey. Bottas still struggling. 14th place. And Hamilton just dropping off in that final sector, actually. It was up to a second. And then when it came up to the start-finish line, much further behind Norris than he was. So maybe Lando Norris using a little bit of that charge, using a bit of battery, keeping himself out of DRS when it comes to that final sector. Hamilton's just edging towards Norris. But I think Norris is just using everything that he can to keep him out of DRS range. So Norris doing everything that he can with 10 laps of this race to go. Lando and Lewis are miles ahead of Sainz. Yes, obscene how fast they are compared to Carlos Sainz. It's nearly 30 seconds now, the gap to Carlos Sainz, which is mental. But Hamilton is going to take the lead of the Drivers' Championship. You're spot on. But it's by how many points? The difference between 1st and 2nd, 7 points Hamilton could gain by winning this Grand Prix. And getting the fastest lap, it would be 8 points. So needs to do as much as he can. Those 8 points by gaining the winning position in this race are massive for Hamilton, especially with only 7 races to go. He'd retake the lead in the Drivers' Championship by quite a considerable margin if he can get it done today. Lewis Hamilton, though, a second behind Lando Norris. And again, we're looking at Sector 3, whether or not he can get within a second when it comes to that DRS detection zone. Still not, though. A little bit closer than he was last lap, but still not close enough is Lewis Hamilton to get that DRS. Does get a little bit of traction, obviously, a little bit of a toe, down the straight. And should be a little bit better on the tyres, but let's see. Still 9 laps to go, keeping Lewis Hamilton at arm's length. as Leclerc gets past Stroll as well. So Leclerc manages to make up a position on Stroll, gets up into 8th place for Charles Leclerc, and has now got Verstappen in front of him, the next driver up. And Leclerc on much fresher tyres than those guys around him. Verstappen then 3 seconds or so ahead. Wow, Leclerc could actually cause a little bit of an upset for Verstappen here, and Verstappen could drop down to 8th place because Leclerc is absolutely going for it. Hamilton on the radio. Risk of rain increasing. It's going to come in around turn 5. But Lewis Hamilton saying that he's struggling to get any closer. Ooh. Hamilton needs to think of a championship hold position, I feel, go full Verstappen. The problem is 8 points is massive. 8 points is a huge amount of points. I'd agree with you if it was like, you know, you gain 2 points or maybe even 1 or 2 points maybe by gaining the position. He's going to gain 7 to 8 points by gaining this position. So needs to go for it, in my opinion. Where's Bottas? 14th place. We have a little rundown of the grid as it stands. Lando Norris first, Hamilton 2nd, Carlos Sainz in 3rd place, Perez in 4th, Ricciardo 5th, Alonso 6th, Verstappen 7th, Leclerc in 8th place, Stroll 9th, Russell 10th. And then we've got just outside the points, Sebastian Vettel is going to be bearing down on Russell soon, unfortunately, but hopefully Russell can hold on. Ocon in 12th, Raikkonen 13th, Bottas 14th, Gasly 15th, Latifi 16th, Tsunoda, Giovinazzi, Mazepin and Mick Schumacher out of this race. As we see a few of the fans there in Sochi getting their umbrellas out. Wow. Will it rain hard enough though for them to warrant changing tyres? Lando Norris spitting quite a bit. The rain is coming. Intermediate tyres. Will they need them by the end of this race? Let's see. We've got 6 laps to go. Oh my goodness me. Lando Norris driving like his life depends on it. Lewis Hamilton now within a second. But will he be within a second when it comes to the 3rd sector? That's the thing that Norris has been able to really do well, is save it so that Lewis Hamilton is not within the DRS zone when it comes to these final couple of corners. Has Lando Norris been able to do it again? Carlos Sainz on the radio. Get ready with Inters. Oh my goodness me. This is not what I need. This is not what I need. As a Lando Norris fan, this is not what I need. Get your brollies out. It's going to get very tense indeed. 60 likes on the stream now. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate that more than you'd imagine. Lando Norris just 0.8 in front of Hamilton. Carlos Sainz saying that the Inters need to be prepared though. So he thinks it's going to come down enough. Oh my goodness me. How was Verstappen? Verstappen's currently in 7th place and doesn't look like he's going to be gaining any time anytime soon. If anything, he's just... Lando Norris goes wide. Oh my goodness me. Lando Norris has messed up there. He goes wide. You can see the rain starting to come down though. Manages to keep the place, but Lewis Hamilton's right up and amongst the gearbox. Oh my goodness me. Do you stop? Can you stop the Inters now? Lando Norris does manage to keep that position. Oh my goodness me. Mate, don't spam the chat like that. I literally just said Verstappen's in 7th. It's done for him. He's out there. Norris, oh my goodness me. Is he going to survive into the braking zone? Just about. Hamilton getting closer and closer, though. That little mistake from Lando could cost him. Oh, our little circus tiger, Lando Norris. Oh my goodness me. It's getting a little bit damp. You can see the rain falling on the cameras. And you can see the starts of the rain filming on the camera there. Carlos Sainz saying that he might go for Inters. Will Hamilton or Norris? They've got enough of a gap. Got nearly a 40-second gap as Perez gets past Sainz. Wow. Vettel then on the radio. Might get worse before it gets better. Wow. Whew. Norris manages to just keep himself in front of Hamilton, even after that little mistake there in the third sector. There is rain coming down there. You can see the signs also warning the guys of rain. Sector 2, yellow flags. Who's going? Oh my goodness, looking very shaky for Hamilton there. Stroll boxing for Inters. Oh my god, the rain is teeming down. Lando Norris has gone wide again. Surely they need to come in for intermediate tyres. Come on, Norris. Please come in for intermediate tyres. Don't ruin this. Oh, he's staying out. Is he staying out? Oh my god. Lewis Hamilton. It's slippery, but it's not raining that much, Lewis Hamilton says. Russell comes into the pits. Bottas into the pits. Raikkonen is into the pits. Mazepin is into the pits. Everyone going for Inters. Maybe risking it a little bit. And Yuki Tsunoda getting out of the way of Lando Norris as Lando Norris is slipping and sliding around out there on those harder compound tyres. Race control. DRS is disabled. Disabled. As Hamilton looks like he's going to come in. Box. No, he does not. Hamilton decides not to box. Might have been a bluff from Mercedes. Wow. Lewis Hamilton decided not to come in. Oh dear, it's Vettel. Has Vettel spun out? No, it's not. It's Lance Stroll and Vettel. Oh, and they come together. Lance Stroll comes over to the left and actually collides. Oh my goodness me. Vettel into the wall. Could have seen a safety car there if that would have been any worse than that. Stroll just about gets out of it and they touch again on the exit as well. Oh my god. My goodness me. It's going all over the place. Hamilton and Norris have decided to stay out. Perez hasn't pitted either. Alonso stays out. Oh my goodness me. It's getting very slippery. Let's see then. The McLaren guys are out. Will Norris come in? Ricciardo comes in. Okay. So Verstappen in. Sainz in. Ricciardo in. Oh my goodness. As Leclerc moves up into 5th place. Goodness me. Verstappen then. Out. Manages to gain a position on Ricciardo, I think, by the looks of things. Verstappen still in 7th place though. Ricciardo and Sainz have dropped down to 8th and 9th. Oh my goodness. Will Norris come in? 4 laps left to go. 4 laps left to go, and it's starting to rain a little bit more. Lando does not want the intermediate tyre. Does not want the intermediate tyre. Blue flags all over the track. Lewis Hamilton coming in. Wow, Lewis Hamilton comes in then for the intermediate tyre. He's got much of a gap to Perez. Needs a good stop though, just in case Norris decides to come in. Lewis Hamilton comes in for the intermediate tyre, although it looks like it might have stopped raining. It looks like Hamilton might have made a mistake here, because Norris has stayed out. Norris has stayed out, still on the hard compound tyre. Hamilton's going to come out still in 2nd place on the intermediate. Perez in 3rd on the medium. Alonso in 4th. Leclerc in 5th. Vettel in 6th. Verstappen 7th. Hamilton has gone for an inter. Lando Norris is committing though. As Mazepin decides to just not... Mazepin, just get out of the way! What are you doing, Mazepin? Get out of the way. Idiot, man. Lando Norris stays out. 25-second then, his gap to Hamilton, who's on the intermediate tyres. Just needs to keep this clean then. He's not going to lose 25 seconds. Ooh. And Lance Stroll slides off the circuit into the wall. Oh my goodness. Oh, we came together with Pierre Gasly. And Gasly does a full pirouette out on track. Wow. Stroll is just getting in all kinds of trouble in these last couple of laps, isn't he? Mercedes seem to have dropped the ball again. I'd have to agree with you. I'd have to agree with you. Although Lando Norris is struggling out there. He hasn't got the opportunity to pit anymore. Norris is really struggling. Is hanging it out. Oh, Lando. Oh, he's sideways as well. Around the final couple of corners. Hamilton's made up like 8 seconds on that lap. Oh my god. Can the Alfa Romeos just get out of the way of Lando Norris, please? For goodness sake. God's sake. Giovinazzi, just piss off. Like... Verstappen. Heavy rain. Heavy rain. Oh my goodness gracious me. Lando Norris so slow out there. Oh my god, and it is teeming with rain in that middle sector. And Lando Norris is losing places to Sebastian Vettel and Mazepin. Oh, it's all gone wrong for Lando Norris. Oh my goodness me. It's all gone wrong for Lando Norris. He's losing seconds upon seconds upon seconds. Hamilton now so close. And Hamilton takes the lead of the race and Lando Norris spins out. Lando Norris has lost out. Oh, he's got it together though. He didn't hit the wall. And he's able to hold on. Can he get round to the pit lane? Norris needs to stop at some point here. Norris! It's full wets. No, he did so well. He was driving so well for the entire race. Max Verstappen's done incredibly well. Gets up into P3, by the way. But I don't know if Max Verstappen has pitted for Inters yet, has he? Lewis Hamilton takes the lead of the Grand Prix. Norris just aquaplanes completely off of the track. No. Max Verstappen is on Inters as well. Wow. Let's see then. Max Verstappen up into P3. Could go up into P2, being told. So Verstappen now could be looking at an incredible P2 from out of nowhere because of this rain that's come down in these last 5 laps or so. It is absolutely teeming it down. That's crazy. Lando Norris, come on, Lando. Please hold on to this P2 at least. Please. Carlos Sainz in 4th place. Ricciardo in 5th. Bottas all the way up into 6th now, by the way, after Bottas had a dismal race. Oh my goodness me. Norris is probably going to come out behind. Oh, Norris is just... It's absolutely disappeared for Norris, hasn't it? He took a risk. Tried to stay out on the dry tyres. Charles Leclerc really struggling out there. Still on the soft combat. Ooh. And Charles Leclerc nearly into the wall there. Again, these cars just aquaplaning that are on the softer compound. Charles Leclerc has dropped all the way out of the points. Means George Russell is back up into 10th place. Carlos Sainz has gained in front of Norris. Norris is only just in the pits. Oh, no. Norris drops behind Ricciardo. Might even come out behind Bottas. Oh, that's so annoying. Lando Norris comes out in 6th place. Lando Norris comes out in 6th place then, behind Bottas, in front of Alonso on the intermediate tyre there. And Alonso might even get in front of him. I think he is. Yeah, Alonso's got in front of him as well. Comes out in 7th place, does Lando Norris. After a wonderful drive from Lando Norris, he's dropped all the way down to 7th. Oh, and he's messed up on the pit entry, and he might actually get a penalty for that as well. Wow, the rain has come at the absolute worst time if you're a Lando Norris fan. He came out of the pit entry as well because he couldn't make it. He's probably going to get a penalty for that. He's behind Raikkonen now. Wow. Ricciardo has gained up into 4th place though. Verstappen now in 2nd out of nowhere. It looked like Verstappen's race was all but over in 7th place. Now suddenly he's in 2nd. Sainz in third, looking at a podium. Ricciardo, fourth place. Bottas in fifth. Alonso sixth. Raikkonen seventh. Norris in eighth as we come round. The final lap of the race then. And Hamilton's done it again. Gets another win. Although he hasn't made up that many points because Verstappen driving from 20th to second place. Yeah, it's all turned around. It's flipped on its head. Verstappen, who looked like he was going to come in seventh, is going to be on the podium. Carlos Sainz, who messed up a little bit. Ricciardo had that awful stop. Now looking like he's going to be in fourth. Bottas having the worst drive that I've seen from him in ages. Now looks in fifth place. But Norris all the way down in eighth. And that is just the case. Wow. Norris has just thrown it away, unfortunately. If you're a Norris fan, I'm afraid he's down in eighth. Hamilton comes around these final few corners, then he's in the final sector. And Hamilton, this is going to be... My goodness me. What a win. He does indeed get that 100th win, Lewis Hamilton. 100 wins comes across the line in first place. The Russian Grand Prix has gone to Lewis Hamilton, and he comes home in first place. Wow. What a race. What an end to a race as well. And Lando Norris looking at the back of Raikkonen. Raikkonen, by the way, up into 7th place for the Alfa Romeo. And no, it's not going to happen for him, unfortunately. Verstappen is going to come home in 2nd place. Only just round into the final few corners now is Verstappen. Just shows how much of a lead Hamilton and Norris had at that point. Hamilton took the right idea, decided to come in for tyres, and came in at the right time. And Norris obviously got it wrong. Norris does manage to get in front of Raikkonen, up into 7th place. Verstappen finishes P2 then, gets on the podium after starting at the back. And Carlos Sainz, another podium for Ferrari this weekend. Carlos Sainz comes home in 3rd place. Ricciardo 4th, Bottas in 5th. And now we're waiting for Alonso to come round into 6th place. Hamilton with the win. 100 wins for Lewis Hamilton. As much as I'm glad he's got the 100 wins, definitely deserves it. One of the best that has been in our sport, and will go down in history as by far and away one of the best. This weekend, I did not want it to be. If I could have picked one race that Lando Norris could have won and Lewis Hamilton wouldn't have got that 100, it would have been this one. Let's have a look then. Alonso does indeed come home in 6th place. So everybody's home and a little bit wet, unfortunately. Hamilton in 1st place. Verstappen 2nd. Carlos Sainz 3rd. Ricciardo comes home in 4th. Bottas in 5th. Alonso 6th place. Lando Norris ends up 7th after that wonderful drive. Just in front of Kimi Raikkonen, who's come back into the team, obviously, after a couple of races out, and finishes inside of the top 10. Whilst talking about who's finishing in the top 10, George Russell has been able to pick up a point for Williams. Another point for Williams this season, and George Russell gains another point on Tsunoda. We'll be up into 16 points now. What a finish, what a drive from Lewis Hamilton. You got to give it to him. Did everything right. Verstappen on the radio, P2. Wonderful, wonderful stuff for Verstappen there. And when it comes to this Drivers' Championship, this could be one of those races we look back on, because Verstappen gaining from 7th to 2nd in those last few laps. Wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff. What happened to Norris? Just didn't come into the pits. Absolutely started teeming down with rain. The rain just bucketed it down with about 3 or 4 laps to go. Lando Norris decided to stay out, decided to stay on the dry tyres. Hamilton came in on the inters, and the intermediate was the correct choice. Unfortunately for Norris, came in, changed a little bit too late, and ended up messing it up a little bit. Came home in 7th, and Norris might actually end up with a penalty too for not coming into the pit lane safely So, what a shame. What a shame. Carlos Sainz still on the podium, though. We can be happy for Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. Lewis Hamilton takes the top step of the podium again and is out there celebrating with the Mercedes team. Gutted. Absolutely gutted is the word that I would have to use for today. Distraught that Lando Norris... It was one of those, though. McLaren told him, maybe it's time to come in. And Lando decided to stay out. I think, maybe the team should have pushed a little bit harder when it came to... It is so tricky to say. So tricky to say, right? Because Lando Norris decided to stay out. But I just wish the team would have, just forced him to come in. Just tell him. If they know so much more, they see that Hamilton's coming in. They've saw the Mercedes pit crew coming out. Gutted. Gutted. Just joined the stream after watching the race. Heartbroken for Lando. Yeah, it'd be me too. Me too. Bittersweet. There's no sweet today, mate. There is no sweet today. I'm happy for Carlos Sainz. That's about it. Happy for Carlos Sainz. Happy for George Russell. That's about it. That's all I've got. A good race, though. A good race, an entertaining race, and a good way to finish the race, to be fair. It added a bit of drama, added a bit of spice. There was good, strategies between different teams. Some went long, some went short. Got a feel for the guys that went, super long on the first stint, though. Because then they had to come in for inters anyway with, 5 laps to go. So, a little bit annoying for them. I seem frustrated. Yeah, I'm a little bit frustrated, I'll be honest. Just a little. Carlos Sainz. I am happy. I'm happy with Carlos Sainz. I'm happy with George Russell. Just gutted that, again, it's Hamilton that wins the race. And Max Verstappen as well manages to come out with a second place out of nowhere. Didn't deserve that. Did not deserve that. Didn't drive a second place worthy race as George Russell goes over to Lando Norris and Lando Norris does win driver of the day, though. As much as that won't be consolidation for him. He's going to need consoling after that. Someone go and give him a hug. My goodness me. So close to that first win. And the rain just absolutely ruined it. Fastest lap went to Lando Norris. After the rain came down, obviously the inters came on. No one was going to go any quicker than Lando Norris when he was in that clean air at the beginning. The McLaren team as a whole messed up today. Yeah, messed up Danny Rick's stop. Should have got in front of Sainz. So realistically, we should be looking at Danny Rick on a podium. But they messed up his pit stop. And then, yeah, got it wrong when it came to Lando. Just didn't prove worthy enough of those points today. Gutted. But, it keeps the title fight open, keeps the title fight interesting. Lando Norris does come over and congratulate Lewis Hamilton, which is lovely to see, actually, from Lando. It's good sportsmanship from him. Especially after Lando proved today that he is worthy of winning a race. And you know what? I think Lando Norris is going to win a race this season. I'm going to say it now. We've got 7 races left to go. The McLaren is looking really, really good. And I think Lando Norris is going to get a win this season. As much as I'd have loved it to have been today, and he deserved it to be today, hopefully, 7 races left, we're going to see Lando Norris get another win. Lewis Hamilton takes P1, though, his 100th win in Formula 1. Wow. A new record century of wins for Lewis Hamilton. That is phenomenal. You just can't take away from that. That is one of the best returns. Well, he's the best return. And it's going to be a long time until anyone gets anywhere close to 100 race wins. So, just a quick rundown. Hamilton, P1. Verstappen comes home second. Carlos Sainz rounds out the podium positions. And then Ricciardo comes home 4th. Bottas 5th. Alonso 6th. Lando Norris a lowly 7th place. And as I said, I think he might end up with a penalty too. Raikkonen comes home in 8th place, pretty good for him. Perez comes home in 9th after a really good stint on those hard tyres, unfortunate for him. George Russell comes home 10th. Lance Stroll and Sebastian Vettel 11th and 12th. Gasly comes home 13th. Ocon 14th. Charles Leclerc, again, a really long stint, a really good stint, but comes home 15th. Giovinazzi 16th. Tsunoda 17th. Mazepin comes home 18th. Latifi and Schumacher was unfortunately the only driver not to finish the race. Alonso was P3 at lap 51. Alonso did good, but he was one of the ones that went long on that first strategy. Like, if you're Alonso, Perez, or Leclerc, you were hoping so much there wouldn't be any rain, right? Because they went so long on that first stint. They had the fresher tyres going into the end of the race, and then they got screwed over by the fact that it then rained, and that just threw them completely off kilter. Like, Perez should have been on the podium today. It should have really been Lando, Hamilton, Perez as our top 3. Hamilton's done the right thing. He got it right. He's the only one out of those 3 that has been able to keep and maintain that podium position. And everyone else sort of messed up a little bit along the way as the rain came down. So Lewis Hamilton gets it. 68 likes on the streams. Just one away. Just one away from being a very entertaining number. But we will end it there. Thank you all so much. I'm sorry that I'm a little bit dejected and a little bit down about the end of the Grand Prix there. But thank you all so much for watching. It's been wonderful. I will have some videos coming out over the next couple of weeks because we've got 2 weeks until Turkey. 7 races left to go. And this championship is just getting closer and closer. A wonderful race. Some really good racing between the teams. Can't argue with that whatsoever. But yeah, just a little bit gutted on my end. Sadie, hello. How you doing? Sorry, watching with your dad. That's fine. Lovely to see you. I'm literally about to end. So, literally about to finish. But I'm glad that you popped by at the end. Lovely to see you here. 71 likes. Two more than the number I was aiming for. But no problem at all, guys. Hopefully you get to catch up with the race. Obviously, this will be live if you want to watch it back later and you want to watch me just fall apart as Lando Norris drives into the wall at the end there. Well, not quite into the wall, but spins out. And then Hamilton just takes an easy lead. And then a terrible pit stop from McLaren as well. Yeah. Not a happy bunny, but there we go. We will we'll have a chat about this in the after race review as well. Let's have a look. See you later, guys. Gutted. Bye. See you in 2 weeks. Turkey. Enjoy.